Assalamualaikum, good morning and warm greetings to all respected speakers, fellow emergency physician, healthcare professional and distinguished guests joining us across Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines and beyond. My name is Hanafi and I will be your moderator for today's seminar. So it is truly an honor and privilege for me to welcome you all to the 7th Emergency Medicine online seminar series on the week 4, currently focusing on environmental and wilderness medicine. So this annual gathering has become a valuable platform for sharing knowledge, discussing evidences, and strengthening collaboration among emergency medicine practitioners, educators, and researchers. This year, EMSS is jointly organized by Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, Universitas Brawijaya Indonesia, and the University of the Philippines. We are also proud to have Toxinology, Education, Resources and Development as our co-organizer. In addition, this seminar is held in collaboration with Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society of Malaysia, Malaysia Society of Toxicology, Remote Envenoming Consultancy Services ASEAN, Pusat Racun Negara Malaysia, Malaysian Society of Toxinology, Malaysia Biodiversity Information System. We would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to our sponsors whose generous contribution and partnership have made the 7th EMSS possible. They are J.A. Nabila and Company Advocates and Solicitors, Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society, Remote Envenoming Consultancy Services ASEAN, Malaysian Society of Toxicology, and Pusat Racun Negara. Your continuous support empowers us to sustain this platform for education, collaboration, and innovation in emergency medicine. We sincerely thank you for your dedication to improving healthcare and patient outcomes. So before we begin, here are a few quick housekeeping reminders to help ensure a smooth and enjoyable session for everyone. Number 1, if you have any question for our speakers, please type them in the Q&A box. All questions will be addressed during the forum session after all lectures have been completed. Number 2, please note that lecture slides will not be shared, but recording of the session will be available for your review after the event. The recording links for the previous session will be shared in the chat box during the event. All recordings are now readily available at Prof. Khaldun Ismail YouTube channel. Number 3, we will be having a fun Kahoot quiz at the end of the session. The winner is kindly asked to contact us via email. The email address will be posted in the chat box. And the last one, QR code for attendance will be displayed at the end of the event. Please make sure to scan and submit it to record your participation. Once again, welcome to the 7th Emergency Medicine Seminar Series. I wish you all a fruitful and engaging session ahead. So to start our session today, it is an honor and privilege to introduce our first speaker, a highly accomplished clinician, educator, and leader in the field of emergency medicine. That is Professor Dr. Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab. Professor Dr. Farid is a consultant emergency physician and senior lecturer at the Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Sultan Zainal Abidin, Kuala Terengganu, Malaysia. He earned his Master of Emergency Medicine from University of Science Malaysia, completed Emergency Ultrasound Fellowship at the Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard Medical School, and hold a Certificate of Negotiation Mastery from Harvard Business School. He is also certified by Canadian Emergency Ultrasound Society. He is a Fellow of the Academy of Medicine Malaysia and Singapore and currently serves as the World Board Member of WinFocus, President of the Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society Malaysia, Chair for Special Interest Group, Wilderness Medicine Malaysia, College of Emergency Physician, Honorary International Visiting Consultant at the Southern Philippines Medical Center, and the Scientific Chair for the upcoming International Conference on Emergency Medicine 2027. Also, many of us remember him well as the immediate past president of the College of Emergency Physicians Malaysia. Today, we are privileged to hear from him on a truly fascinating and practical topic, the do and don'ts of acute care in the wild. In this session, Prof. Dr. Farid will share his vast knowledge and real-world experience in wilderness and Australian medicine, exploring how we can apply emergency principle when resources are limited and nature becomes our only ally. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Professor Dr. Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab is unable to join us live today, but rest assured, we will still have the privilege of learning him from his expertise. We are pleased to present his pre-recorded lecture titled The Do and Don'ts of Acute Care in the Wild. Please stay tuned and enjoy the lecture.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. Welcome for the next seminar series of week 4. So I am Dr. Farid, Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab. I'm from Universiti Sultan Zainal Abidin, Kuala Terengganu. I was given a topic, do and don'ts in acute care in the wilderness medicine. First of all, I would like to thank Fakulti Perubatan Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia and the organizing team, Department of Emergency Medicine from UKM, for the 7th Emergency Medicine 2025 seminar series. This is week 4 with the title of Environmental and Wilderness Medicine. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of my experiences and also some of the knowledges that we are going to share with all the participants for today. So a bit of disclaimer. I would like to do a disclaimer that I'm part of the GE Healthcare Ultrasound, Vino Ultrasound Active Scientific, IDAN Ultrasound, and Mindray Ultrasound. I'm part of the key opinion leader, the KOL, and also trainer, and also an expert consensus member for AstraZeneca. So I think when we come to wilderness medicine, people always talking about how to manage patient in any condition of in wilderness medicine, but we would like to emphasize that the important part is not the management. Important part is the prevention and precaution, because I think whatever incident happen in wilderness is not something within your hand, which is not necessarily can be as easy for us to handle as we in our medical fraternity and emergency department, ICU, or any other health facilities in our setting. So I think this topic become more and more important. I think once we have many our adventure seekers, sports people who venture more into the deep area where the medical facilities is from more than far to reach. So I think it's become one of the main topic nowadays, and wilderness medicine has become more and more popular because what we see now is more injuries, more conditions which is related to the far area from the medical facilities. So what we like to emphasize in this topic is also regarding the prevention and precaution, especially the preparedness for whatever activity is going to be undertaken with the knowledge of the area and the activities and the type of injuries that might happen. So we are a Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society under the special interest group of College of Emergency Physician, a new chapter in Malaysia in emergency medicine that we started a couple of years ago, and we were gaining our momentum quite fast, and we have a lot of members now joining. We have a lot of workshops been running. So we hope that everybody who listening to this topic, please join us to make this society and activity become more reasonable and to be accepted by many people to get more knowledge and awareness regarding this wilderness medicine. So acute care is anywhere. So I think the most important thing for the medical practitioner or any healthcare practitioner is the principles. So whatever condition that you are, I think whatever knowledge you have is to be in highly functioning in managing the patient, whether they are in a high setting or in a low resource environment. So I think what is emphasized in this condition is you can work wherever you are as long as you have a very good grasp on the principle of management in any condition. But I think we have to accept some of the condition that we may do a lot of things, but some of the condition that we may not do anything. So that's what this topic we have do and don't. Sometimes we need to know what is our capability on managing the patient. So a bit of introduction, I think by definition, wilderness medicine is something that we say that patient may have no access to medical facilities within 2 hours, which is, I think, in Malaysia, most of the sites, sometimes in urban areas, we have more than 2 hours to reach any healthcare facilities. Or I think this is more precisely on a condition where people seek for any adventure outside the area where the medical facility coverage is available, when they go for hiking or diving or deep into jungle trekking and things like that. Or even though for simple bicycle riding, which is very far from any medical facilities, when anything happen, any injury happens, any condition, medical emergencies happens, that you are very far away, even for pre-hospital care or any emergency, and even though for the hospitals which is nearby. So whatever it is, you have to seek a better or high quality care for any injuries. That's why medical or wilderness emergency medicine or wilderness medicine really emphasizing on. So the job is to give the best practice medicine that you can have, even though you are in a very low resource environment. I think all of this historically started, even though our ED now and our ICU now is all started from the military or combat medicine or during disaster or during in wilderness, very far away from any medical facilities, where all these experiences shape our current critical and acute care medicine in current situation. So what we have now in ED and in ICU is all the experiences that we had before during disaster, during battle medicine, and so on. That what we already shape our current setting in our hospitals nowadays. So historically, you can see 8% to 3% reduction of mortality during World War II is just because uh, people understand of hemorrhagic shock. People understand about the availability of the surgeon who can do some life-saving surgery, antimicrobial introduction, blood product resuscitation. These are the new knowledges which comes in during the war, that how we able to reduce the mortality quite significantly when we understand about what we need to do. And if you realize in 1990, when the Germany won the World Cup, when the time the tactical combat casualty care also being introduced, it provide evidence-based guidance for pre-hospital care, usually especially in military conflict area, regarding about tourniquet application, about pneumothorax management, about damage control resuscitation. These are the things where they learn during 1990 about what is this condition that we can do in the combat field. Where we can do the management, and it shows the drop of almost 67% of the mortality. It's a very huge drop. Just introducing how to manage pneumothorax, apply tourniquet, and also damage control resuscitation. So it's all about the needs. A different area need different requirement, need different preparation. So whatever you prepare, it all depends on whatever activities you are looking for. So if you going for um, off-roading, that you have a car with you, then you know what to prepare. If you're going for hiking, you know what are you carrying and how much can you carry, and you know how do you prepare. If you're going for a scuba diving, you know how deep you're going to dive, and you know how much things that you can bring, then you need to prepare. So it's all depends on the different area, different situation, and whatever activities you're going to embark on. That's why I said earlier on, the preparation is important for any activities that you're talking about. So let's focus a bit on what wilderness medicine really focusing in. I think whenever you do any activities, any expeditions, the do's, the real do's that usually people tend to forget is about some of the topics that I list out here about the navigation regarding the geography, the topography, what is the site that you're going to go, how is it going to be, what is the transportation, what are the durations. Sometimes a 2 days, 1 night expedition is totally different than a 6 days, 5 nights expedition. A expedition through jungle is different than expedition through jungle and river and hills. It's all a total different environment that you have to understand the geography, topography of the journey that you're going to take. So that all depends on the preparation. Environment. What kind of environment are you going to face? How is the weather going to be? Have you ever checked the weather forecast for the next coming days whenever we're going to update the program or the adventure risk? How high is it and how dark it is? Sometimes it can be 12 o'clock at the mid-noon and the jungle looks so dark, so you doesn't able to understand the timing and the darkness whenever you're in the jungle. So it's totally different when you go for high rise or for the altitude. When you go higher up, the trees become shorter, it become much brighter. So it's totally different for you understand what is the environment can give you whenever you go. The supplies, whatever you can bring, personnel, what is the consumable you're going to bring. So how many personnel can bring how many equipments? If you're two people in a group going somewhere, how much things you can bring compared to a 20 people in a group, how much you can bring when you can bring your personal equipment and also sharing equipment. Then you can get more things to be brought together. Energy, whatever you bring, power source, solar backup, how long can it last? What is the limitation? How big can you bring? It all depends. If you go on a car, it's a different story. If you go by hike, it's a different story. So it's all is what you're going to focus every time you go for activity. What is the support? Logistics, personnel, communication. Just a simple question for the hikers. Not everywhere when you go for hike, you informed the police or the rangers at the site before you hike. You just hike because you want to hike, but you never prepare and never plan to tell people, this is the time I'm hiking, I'm going for a hike. I'm going with my friends, 3 of us. If you don't come back within this time, please do look for us. Do any of us do that most of the time when we go for hike? Most probably not, unless they already a strict rule that you have to do that. Like Mount Kinabalu, they know how many people goes up, how many people comes down, so they know what's happening up there. Mount Tahan, yes, but some of the site that you go for simple jungle trekking or simple hiking, nobody really focus on that. Nobody really have the time. Nobody really have knows. Not even the police or the rangers. You even can tell your friends or your family members that I'm going for hike. This time I expected to come back at this time. If I'm not I didn't able to contact you, please do look for me. So usually we don't do that because we thought like it's a simple hike. So no worries, I'll be come back. Yes, but things may go differently. And unexpected problems, special attention, special skill set, special equipment depends on whatever activity you do. If you do diving, then you know what items you need, what special equipment that you need. So do you check your equipments? Do you know? I have friends when we go for diving when we after you keep your personal floating device for so long without being used when you go for the diving, whenever you go to the water, you keep sinking and sinking, you cannot float. Why? There is a leak because you never check your items before. So everything have to be in focus when you go for any activities because luck is not a strategy. So you cannot depend on luck. So you don't work based on your luck. So your luck is only applicable when you prepared fully. You cannot expect the luck to be your strategy. All right. So, and please do not underestimate the environmental hazards. I'm a vivid off-roader. I go 4x4 every time. So today I drove into a site where I can reach within 3 hours. The same route I take tomorrow, I may not reach. So every time rains, the thing change. Every time car moves, the road change. So it's not the same. It's not the same. So do not underestimate environmental hazards. The rain can change, the wind can change, uh, the topography can change, everything can change. So you do not misunderstood or miscalculate whatever you try to do with the environment. Okay. I think team organization, I think is very well described. It's clearly defined and very synergistic rules and responsibility. All team members are inherent to its success. Expert leads, the other follows. If everybody wants to give idea, nothing gonna happen. So you have to know what is your capability. Medic team, do the medic part. Expedition team leader, do the expedition team lead side. And those logistic, do the logistic part. Everybody have their role. So whatever things emergency happen, so you have to care for the provide at the scene, en route, and also to the definitive care. So if anything happens, follow the lead. So if everybody wants to be the lead, nobody wants to become the follower. So in a ship, there can be only one captain. If everybody wants to play captain, then the ship doesn't move anywhere. So please, whenever you have a group of team going, then you must know who's the lead, who's the backup lead, and who is the sweeper, and so on. This is the team organization that you should have whenever there's a team going for any activities. So wilderness medicine, when you go into the details, is very dynamic. Medicine is dynamic, especially in wilderness. So especially it goes back to what we know, what we understand. A good science is very, very important. A solid experience is it's expected to have those who vivid hikers or riders or off-roaders or things like that. And what makes to seems to make sense. I think that's very important because you can't do things that you can do in hospital in the wilderness setting. You must be able to be dynamic, must be able to be creative, must be able to be realistic in whatever you do because you can't apply everything that you do in hospital in a wilderness setting. All right. Do stay calm, assess situation. Control your panic. I think the most important thing is panicking. When you do panic, you actually lose your sense and you don't have a clear head on how to go ahead after this. So when you calm down, remember in wilderness is totally different than an emergency department and ICU when something happens. In emergency department, everything is about time. You have no time. You have to race against the time. But in wilderness, time is not your enemy because you have all the time, because you cannot bring the patient out as soon as you want it to be, because you cannot call for ambulance to come fetch the patient. You cannot bring the patient out to the emergency department as soon as possible, because let's say you hike about 2 hours, you cannot bring down the patient in 2 hours. So it all is about calmness. You have to be calm, prioritize what you need to do, and give the best decision at the point of time. So control your panic. Second thing, scene safety. I think nobody wants to go and have a second victim in any condition because enough with one. When you have two, it's become disaster. So try to approach any victims when it's safe. If it's not safe, if it's not safe, nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. So please do not try to be hero or try to become the person who wants to be on the newspaper just because you want to help somebody and you lost your life. So I think the safety is paramount priority for any rescue event. Any rescue event doesn't matter whether it's a medical rescue, it's in a rescue of the just to bring the patient out or things like that. The safety is very good. It's very important features. Okay, well let's go a bit on details on airway management. So of course, we understand when anything happens, what the most important thing when the patient unconscious, the airway blockade. So we can have many ways we can do in a hospital, head tension lift, jaw thrust, but how long can you hold the jaw thrust and head tension lift? So you have to do something because, as I said, time isn't not a dire straits here. You have plenty of time. So you don't tell me you're going to do head teaching lift or jaw thrust for 1 hour continuously. So you must have some other method to prevent the blockade of the airway. So some of the things you can tie the tongue, pull it out, you can pin the tongue out so that it doesn't block the airway. So it all depends on the situation, and as I said, medical is dynamic whenever you know wilderness. So you try to maneuver whatever you have to improve the patient's quality at the point of time. So if you think the left lateral position is good for the patient, put it left lateral, at least you can release the airway. You may have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D for managing the airway. So giving back buff mask or put in a supraglottic device or cricothyroidotomy. But in wilderness, if you have a girdle airway, it's already a blessing. It's already a blessing to have a girdle airway. Okay. Intubation, don't even think about that. Don't even think about it. Even you are a very expert anesthesiologist, you may intubate, but how to ventilate? There, what do you have to ventilate? You don't bring back buff mask with you. You don't bring laryngoscope. You don't bring ATT tube different sizes. You don't even bring things to anchor the tube. So it's not easy. It's not easy managing airway in the wilderness. So if you're prepared for that, then you have to prepare to bring the patient out with the tube. So it's something that you really have to think aloud on how to do things if things goes wrong in that manner. Second, about bleeding control, I think even in the first week we were taught on that part, and then what you need to do about the compression, bandaging, tourniquet, and so on. I think this is a very simple, straightforward things that we were being taught even from the very beginning as a healthcare provider. So what you need to do is direct pressure dressing, tourniquet application, just to stop the bleeding. Because if you're unable to stop the bleeding, the bleeding cause hypovolemic shock, and then patient goes to shock that we cannot control. If you think of patient might have a pelvic injury, of course, it's good to have binders, but we don't bring the binders in the wilderness. And what you have, whatever you have at the point of time. If you have your sleeping bag, then your sleeping bag. If you have your sarung, that is your sarung, whatever you can use to just do the minimum that you can prevent from patient to go to hemorrhagic shock. Hypovolemic, easy in hospital. You have cannula, you have IO, you can give blood, you can give fluids. So in wilderness, first of all, you don't bring. Second of all, you cannot maintain. So what you can do is oral rehydration strategies may improve hydration. And when you don't have anything else, you can just give water for the patient. Even though it's like, say, if patient conscious, okay, patient unconscious, even that is become a difficult thing to do. So even a small boluses of fluids by drinking can give a good relief for the patient. Obstructive or cardiogenic shock. Oh, so we have history taking, you have clinical examination, and you can confirm with ultrasound if you can. But most of the time, how many of you bring ultrasound portable to the wilderness? So how many of us prepared to do these things? So usually symptomatic relief you can do, and emergency evacuation. Nothing much that we can really do. If you can't even get to the evacuation, then it's a time bomb waiting. Tender loving care, and you pray hard. So nothing goes wrong, helps comes early, and all the best for that kind of patients. Anaphylactic shock, I think, is quite commonly seen, especially in a wilderness scenario, because plants, insects can give a very disastrous moment for those adventure seekers. So EpiPen is something that we consider for those wilderness enthusiasts. Is a must to bring. Sometimes it's difficult to find EpiPen in the market, especially in Malaysia, but I think it's available that you can buy. And the other option that you can have, you can always syringe out some adrenaline from the hospitals and bring it with you in a syringe. It's still very useful when things comes handy during that kind of anaphylactic shock. Because if you ask me what one drug that I will bring wherever I go, the major drug will be adrenaline. It can be used for many things: anaphylaxis, asthma, cardiac shock or cardiac collapse, or any other conditions. So, what you need to do, remove the offending agents, whatever insects or things like that, and then administer epinephrine, 0.5 intramuscularly, and usually the drug can do wonder. All right. Head injury, identify and manage the patient. So those who understand about some training of medical, you can do pupil size, reaction, level of consciousness, decide next move. Generally, we do evacuate all the patients, but sometimes you can monitor if the patient's GCS is full, you're just thinking of mild head injury, you may continue with the expedition, you may continue, but most of the time, if the GCS is low or have some episode of amnesia or lost consciousness in 130 minutes, actually, we know this patient need further evaluation. So most of the time, all these patients are being evacuated out. I think stroke is another one. Once you know suspicion of stroke, urinary hypoglycemia, once you know it's not hypoglycemia, I think there is no other way. You have to bring the patient out, refer to medical fraternity. So what you need to do is to further classify the stroke, because there is no other way that you can continue the expedition and come back and take management, because I think the earlier you go for the hospitals, the better for the patient's outcome. Spine injury, I think you follow the Nexus guideline if you understand about Nexus. If not, if you're not sure, then you just presume there is a neck injury based on the injury method, injury mechanism, and so on. So once you think the patient might have an injury of the spine, you protect the spine. And once suspected spine injury, I think there is no way the patient can continue any expedition or any activities. You have to be referred to the nearest medical center. So it's all evacuation. And if you suspect some spinal cord injury, vacuum spleen, whole body is the best, but you don't bring. Spiker collar is another option. Sometimes you don't bring. So what you can do, you can just evacuate the patient as comfortable as possible. Remember, this is not pre-hospital care. You can scoop and run. This is more an scoop and bring it out comfortably. It's not how fast, it's how comfortable patient can be when you bring patient out. Patient can be supine, patient can be in a lateral position, as long as the spine being supported and patient is comfortable if patient conscious. If patient unconscious, fine, you can bring the patient in a supine position. If patient is conscious, then usually we put patients on his own comfortable position so that we can bring the patient out. Just imagine you're going to put the patient in supine position, you carry the patient out all the way 3-4 hours. How comfortable going to be for the patient compared to patient put himself into the comfortable position and you bring the patient out. So it's always a controversy between the pre-hospital care and wilderness medicine. But sometimes, as I said, medical is dynamic. So you have to change whatever we practice in wilderness medicine compared to pre-hospital care. All right. So you try to tie the patient as comfortable as possible and bring them out. Acute seizure. Okay. Hopefully you don't get one, but I got one once when we go for a community services in one of the wilderness area. So one of our friend have a fitting. So most of the time we don't bring diazepam along with us. So usually the fitting cases will aborted. 90% will aborted within 30 seconds. It usually lasts about 2 minutes. So you try to find the cause, and it depends. If 90% of cases aborted, usually you can monitor the patient. Either you want to continue with the expedition or continue the stay. It all depends on the progress of the patient. Most of the time, it's an acute fit. Usually, it will stop within 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and usually patient recover well. And as long as you can remove the causating symptoms, then or what is the main issues, then actually patient be recover well, and you can either bring the patient down or stay and bring down later. But if you think the patient is deteriorating because of something else, then I think you need to plan for evacuation process, right? This is a tragic thing that I think happened recently in Gunung Liang. Al-Fatihah to Mustaqim. So he was found died in the Gunung Liang. So one of the articles say dia sempat melawan puncak tapi tak sempat pulang. So the cause of death was being identified as hypothermia. So primary hypothermia, a previously healthy individual become overwhelmed by environmental cold exposure. Falling into ice is the common thing we usually hear, but we usually don't, or we underestimate the environment factor. Remember I was saying about environmental factor, we underestimate. When you are in a high altitude area, actually the temperature is cold. The wind is strong. And when you are sweating or there is raining, so it becomes worse. So the process of evaporation of your body heat is much faster when you have raining and you have a high wind. So you will lose your body temperature very fast. So the most probable cause for the death of our hiker is most probably because of that reason. And so hypothermia is something is preventable if you know how to do that. So you try to immobilize the victim, I think apply thermal blanket. So if you know that you are going for somewhere which is a high altitude, especially in Asian countries, high altitude, and you know it's going to be raining, and you know the wind is strong. So part of the thing that you need to bring is thermal blanket or any thermal jacket that you need to bring. And do not forget the environmental or the weather forecast, because if you know it was raining, you should suggest to bring clothes to change, because you know whenever you have in a cool environment, your body mechanism is totally different than, and you can't think clearly. So that's why whenever people have hypothermia, they try to rewarm themselves very fast, because it jeopardizes your mental acuity and everything. So you have to be warm, and you know how to think clearly. So you should have a pair of shirts and trousers and stockings to change whenever it's wet and cold, and you have to warm yourself, have to have a proper blanket and things like that. That's why usually we need to have buddies. Um, Buddy system is very important. I think many people misunderstand the buddy system. It's actually something it's very applicable, not necessarily only for hiking, for everything. If those you ask those divers, they don't dive without buddy. They don't dive without buddy. If you ask any off-roaders, I'm an off-roader. If ask any off-roaders, we go off-roading, we don't go one car. We always go with a buddy, at least two or more, because you know anything happens, somebody is there to help us. So, and anything goes wrong, we don't leave someone back. We usually with them and bring them out. If you plan to come out, leaving them, then we already have planned what to do next. So buddy system is usually is for wilderness activities. It's very important. So just a reminder for everyone. So whatever you want to do, activities outside, doing alone is not a good idea. Doing alone is never been a good idea for any adventurous activities. It's always with buddy and friends and colleagues. Okay. And please do not assume help will arrive quickly, because you cannot plan things happening outside. Because as I said earlier on, topography, weather, um, the darkness, the environment, everything change by time, morning, afternoon, evening, night, everything change. So it's not easy to find someone in the jungle because it was so dense, and sometimes they couldn't find the way in and way out. So it's not that they cannot come to you. Just imagine to find a house which call for 999 ambulance call. Also, we have trouble to find the house in a very systematic manner when we have the location correctly. just imagine what happened if you lost in the jungle and to find you in a place where we have no proper coordinates. So it's totally uh, absurd when we say you will plan to get help quickly. So you have to plan how to be self-sustained, self-sufficient. So you have to know how to do the rescue operation, hours, even days sometimes, because you never know what's going to happen. It all depends whether terrain, what is the resource available. You cannot expect everybody have helicopters to come and fetch you out. So it's maybe only can be accessed by foot, only can be accessed by car or four wheels. So it depends on whatever things. Um, you have to prepare mentally, be positive, and you have to plan for providing prolonged care for any injured patient if there is, because as I said, time is not the enemy now. Is the enemy is you yourself, your victim, your team is your own enemy within. Because if you mentally plan, prepared what people need to do during that kind of times, then you know how to survive longer with the patient with you, with the victim with you. So it's all about preparation, planning, training, so you know what to do when things happens, right? So it's also come on training part. So hopefully, we really hope people do learn about some basic emergency response procedures and understand what their roles during crisis. So usually we try to teach them about, even in our society, we try to teach them about how to manage simple cases, as simple as how to carry the patient out when you're alone, when with your two friends, or in a group of five friends or six friends, well, how you can bring the patient out. As simple as that. uh, what to do, how to tie knots, simple thing, how to survive, how to do a bushcraft survival, how to get fire ongoing, things like that is even looks simple, but I think it's life-saving. So we really hope that those listeners today who really wants to go for this kind of activities outside, please do join wilderness medicine courses, any courses that are available, so that you can learn and experience some of the basic method of response during emergencies, and whatever you can do to help the patient and to help the team. To help the team. All right. I think in the nutshell, critical in wilderness medicine, it's something that you need to plan, prepare, anticipate, and predict. As I said, luck is not a strategy. You have to prepare for whatever gonna comes. After you prepare everything, things happen, at least you know what to do next. All right. Good science, good experience makes sense. So you the more experience you have, the more activities you have done, the more injuries and victims you've seen, you understand better what to do next. That's why if you ask Malim Gunung, they know how to carry patient down. If you know about the scuba instructors, they know how to take the victims from down to up to the water surface. Okay, dynamic medicine. Be flexible. You have to be creative. Things happen everywhere. Acute care, critical care can be applied anywhere as long as you are flexible and you understand your principle of management, and be creative, because you don't have anything in the hospital in the wilderness. So uh, be flexible, be creative, be reliable on whatever you do. Know the limitation. Sometimes you must know your safety margin. If you cannot proceed, you cannot proceed. If you cannot continue, you cannot continue. That's why we say even you do CPR. When you stop, when you're tired. So same thing. If you can't do much, you have to stop. Okay, and join the wilderness medicine team and get trained. That's another thing that I have to emphasize, because the more training you have, the more things you see, the better you are. So that's why I do still learn a lot from those Malim Gunung scuba instructors, my off-roader colleagues. Their experience is very valuable for us. They know how to do things whenever things goes wrong, and they know what to do when things getting better. They can read the environment, they can read the weather forecast, they know which fruit to take, which leaf to use for some medicinal properties. So there are a lot of things to be learned outside that. So even though you are a doctor who knows everything, you still have a lot to learn from the experts on the field. So please do not underestimate our colleagues who are expert in whatever field they are doing. If hikers, Gunung Malim, if divers, dive instructors, if off-roaders, the veteran off-roaders, uh, if the hikers, then you ask those veteran hikers, they know what to do whenever things goes wrong. So there's always room to learn and understand and improve ourselves. I think thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you again for the EMSS team from UKM to give this opportunity to share. So I'm sorry I can't be able to be with you guys live. So this is a recording. So any question you can forward to the secretary team and they will pass it to me, then I'll try to answer that. And I hope again, please do join us in Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society so you can be part of the team to create awareness of wilderness medicine to all the people in Malaysia and also for the Asian countries. We are also planning to do a conference next year in wilderness medicine. I hope everybody can join to support us to become part of the team who give awareness regarding wilderness activities, wilderness medicine in Malaysia and also in Asian countries. Because I think we cannot stop people from go to do adventurous activities. I think that's the way to go now. People enjoying the life. I think it's fun. But what we emphasize is do it properly, do it cautiously, and be prepared for everything. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of the organizing committee of the 7th Emergency Medicine Online Seminar Series, I would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to Professor Dr. Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab for the truly insightful and engaging presentation on the do and don'ts of acute care in the wild. Thank you once again, Professor, for sharing your time, expertise, and patience with us today. We are truly honored to have had you as a part of this year's EMSS, and we look forward to future collaboration and continued learning from your leadership in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in expressing our warmest gratitude to Professor Dr. Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab. It is my great honor to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Marvin J. Sarmiento, the Vice Chair of the Philippine Toxinology Society and a dedicated wildlife biologist with a deep commitment to the study of toxinology, conservation, and human-wildlife coexistence. Mr. Marvin's professional interests covers a wide spectrum of discipline, including snakebite envenomation, marine toxinology, poisoning management, proteomics, and genomics. He is currently pursuing a master's degree in wildlife science at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and he is actively engaged in addressing human-wildlife conflict through the WHO One Health approach, which emphasizes multi-sectoral collaboration at the human-animal-environment interface, an area increasingly critical in today's interconnected world. He is a recognized International Union for Conservation of Nature Extinction Risk Assessor for the Philippines reptile and amphibians, and one of the few Filipino scientists affiliated with the IUCN Species Survival Commission Crocodile Specialist Group, reflecting his dedication to global conservation and biodiversity program. Today, Mr. Marvin will be sharing his expertise and experience in a fascinating lecture titled Human-Wildlife Conflicts, a Multidisciplinary Approach to Emergency Care and Conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Sir Marvin J. Sarmiento as he delivers his talk on Human-Wildlife Conflict, a Multidisciplinary Approach to Emergency Care and Conservation. So, Mr. Marvin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, all right. So thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a quite fascinating presentation from Dr. Wabag, and I really appreciate the presentation, especially in the wilderness medicine. Especially me, I learned a lot in the very short presentation because I myself are always involved in wildlife expedition. So I got a few notes from the previous speaker. So, good morning again, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to share a topic that sits at the intersections of two worlds that are often treated separately, the emergency medicine and the wildlife conservation. So, I am Marvin J. Sarmiento, a wildlife biologist, emergency medical technician, and a Filipino biologist with passion and dedication in saving life, both human and wildlife. We often think of wildlife conflict as purely an environmental issues or sometimes purely a public safety concerns. But in reality, every time a person is being beaten, attacked, or injured by a wild animal, it becomes a medical emergency and a conservation moment. So, allow me to discuss this topic in the context of conservation and medicine as well. So, across the world, as we expand our communities, farms, infrastructures, our boundaries with wildlife habitats are getting thinner. Encounters that are used to be rare are now common. Snakes inside the house, crocodiles in the rice fields, monkey raiding fruit trees, or even birds colliding with aircraft, especially the photos on the center. That's the part of most expensive part of the airplanes, cost around 500 US dollars, based from my friend who are currently working in an airline. Each of these situation has two sides. Uh, on one side, there's a person in danger, and on the other side, an animal species is fighting to survive. But our main challenge today is how do we protect both? So that's the questions we're going to answer with these short but profound presentations I prepared for you guys. So, uh, of course, the topic of human-wildlife conflict is complex and concerns multiple disciplines such as conservation biology, political ecology, anthropology, and even human geography. As a distinct form of human-animal relationship, human-wildlife conflict emerged as a field study in the late 90s and has undergone rapid development since around 2005. The term human-wildlife conflict has traditionally been applied only in these negative interactions between people and wildlife, but this implies deliberate actions by wildlife species and ignores the conflict between groups of people about what should be done to resolve these issues. That is why the IUCN Species Survival Commission, a Human Wildlife Conflict and Coexistence Specialist Group, and the UNDRR define human wildlife conflict as struggles that emerge when the presence of or behavior of wildlife possesses an actual or perceived direct and in recurring threat to human interests or needs, leading to disagreements between group of people and negative impacts on people and or the wildlife. So now, when we talk about conflicts, not all of them are created equal, and that's very true to human wildlife conflict as well. At the first level, we have a dispute. This is the most visible kind, sometimes over property, safety, income, or damages. For example, a farmer losing chickens to a python, or a fisherman losing nets to a crocodile. These are the surface level issues, direct and immediate. But often, these disputes sit on top of level two, the underlying conflict. Here, you'll find a history of recurring problems that haven't been properly resolved. Maybe there's no compensation mechanism or authorities responded too slowly in the past. The frustration builds and people start seeing wildlife not a part of nature, but a nuisance. Then, we reach the level 3, the deep-rooted conflict. This is where it gets more emotional when values or identity are threatened, For instance, when communities feel their safety, the culture or sense of control over their land is being ignored. At this level, even small incidents can trigger big reactions because the conflict is no longer just about an animal. It's about trust, respect, or belongings. So, as a responder, researcher, and conservationist, we can't just, treat the bite or fix the fence. We need to understand which level of conflicts we're dealing with. Because the deeper the conflict, the more human understanding, not just the technical solution, but a lot of things going on with these issues. So, apologies for the memes. So, these memes pretty much sums up what human wildlife conflict feels like sometimes. You think you're dealing with one problem, say a lion, and suddenly something else shows up, usually bigger, meaner, and probably with sharper teeth. In reality, this is what working in the field often looks like. You're not just facing one challenge, you're balancing safety, conservation, and emergency response all at once. And sometimes, like in this photo, you and the wildlife end up on the same side, even just for a moment. It's funny, but it's also a reminder in every human wildlife encounter, both lives are at risk and both deserves protection. That is why that's what makes this topic both complex and fascinating as well. Right. So why human wildlife conflict matters? HWC are becoming more frequent, serious, and widespread because of human population growth, agricultural expansion, infrastructure development, climate change, and other drivers of habitat loss. HWC can occur wherever wildlife and human population overlap. So any factor that forces wildlife and people into a closer contact makes conflict more likely. Uh, as you can see on the photos, this is actually a photos from Luzon in Metro Manila. On the right side of your screen is Metro Manila. It's a very crowded place. It's a capital of the Philippines. And on the left photos is actually an open mining site within the outskirts of the Luzon, whereby the mountains are being, degraded by mining, open pit mining. So as we continue to expand, building roads, farms, and communities, we also move deeper into wildlife habitats. And the more we encroach, the more this encounter becomes inevitable. So, yeah. Of course, the duality of the issue makes the HWC a more complex problem. Sometimes it's a farmer beaten by a snake, a fisherman attacked by a crocodile, or even a plane grounded by a bird strike, the previous photos I shown to you a while ago. But beyond the headlines, what we often forget is that this conflict hurts both sides. People get injured or even killed. And wildlife are often hunted or driven away in retaliations. You can see a huge king cobra on the left side of your screen. Farmers who have been bitten by Naha. And on the lower right of your screen is a agar farmer, a seaweed farmer in southern Philippines who have been attacked by 6 feet crocodile. So, yeah. And of course, the importance of emergency medicine in HWC. This is where emergency medicine becomes critical, not just as a medical responder, but as part of a broader conservation strategy. Because how we respond to this incident can either escalate the issue or promote coexistence. That's why today we're looking at human-wildlife conflict, not just a medical or ecological problem, but as a one health challenge, one that demands collaborations between doctor, conservationists, and communities alike. So, we need to bridge the gap between those three sectors, working together to address this rapidly evolving issues. And yeah, so this is what the One Health approach look like. I'm gonna explain it to you. let's take a closer look at this diagram. So this right here captures the essence of what we call the One Health approach, a framework that recognizes that the health of the people is deeply interconnected with the health of animals and the environment. For the longest times, we've treated these as separate worlds. Doctor heals people, veterinarians heal animals, and environmental scientists take care of the ecosystems. Something goes on like that. But nature doesn't operate in silos, and neither do the disease. Viruses, toxins, pollutants move freely across these boundaries, and that's what this image so clearly illustrates. You'll notice three overlapping circles: animal health, human health, and the ecosystem condition. Each circle represents a domain of health, but the real story happens where they interact. At the intersection of animal and human health, we find zoonotic disease, those that jump from animals to human. This includes things like rabies, avian flu, and yes, you're familiar with the coronaviruses. Over 70% of emerging infectious diseases actually come from animal, whether wildlife or domesticated one. So when we protect animal health, we're not just doing it for conservation, we're doing it for public health security as well. And at the overlap between human and ecosystem, we see the impact of our actions, the pollutions, deforestations, mining, land use change, etc., etc. This activity alters water system, food chains, even the air we breathe. In turn, they influence rates of respiratory illnesses, waterborne diseases, and even vector-borne infections like dengue and malaria. Oh, by the way, it's a fact. I am also a survivor of dengue and malaria. So 2 years ago, so survivor of dengue and malaria, I combined those disease. So parasitic and viral disease. Anyway, so it's a cycle. Our environment reflects our choices. And then at the intersection between animal and ecosystem, we have the foundation of ecological balance. Healthy ecosystem regulates disease naturally, bats controls insect populations, wetlands filter waters, and forest absorbs carbon. But when we disrupt this system, we open the door of Pandora. No, actually, no Pandora. It's opening the door of pathogens to thrive and spill over. Essentially, ecosystem degradation becomes a public health threat. And now, look at the center of the diagram, the space where the circles meet. That's where One Health truly operates. This is where we recognize that human, animal, and the environmental health aren't separate stories. They're chapter of the book, they're chapter of the same books, and this central overlaps is where zoonotic pathogens, environmental exposure, and food webs all converge. So I hope that explains how human-wildlife conflict, emergency medicine are interconnected. Yeah, so these are some of the few wildlife conflict in the Philippines, so the Philippine settings, and I know some of the Asian countries are also have this unique animals. So now let's take a closer look at the different types of human-wildlife conflicts in our country that directly intersect with both emergency and conservations. Starting with the snakes, the most popular one but most neglected one. These are the most frequent cause of medical emergencies in rural areas. Snake bites are listed as NTD by WHO. Yet, despite their reputation, snakes are vital components of ecosystem. They regulate rodent populations and help maintain agricultural balance. Not to mention the compound to create medicine out of the venom. So, next is the crocodiles. Attacks are rare but often catastrophic when they do occur, resulting in major trauma, extensive lacerations, sometimes death. Sometimes death. No, actually, majority are there. From a conservation standpoint, many of our crocodile species are critically endangered, and retaliatory killings can significantly impact their fragile populations. Then we have the wild boars. These animals are known for causing agricultural damages, leading to human aggression and frequently confrontations. Medically, goring injuries and fractures are common, especially among farmers or hunters. And ecologically, so to speak, the challenges lies in managing their populations without resorting to, indiscriminate culling of the wild populations. And of course, moving on to the monkeys, which are increasingly adapting to urban environment. Their interactions with people, often through feeding or crop raiding, can result in bites and scratches that carry risk of rabies or bacterial infections. This issue isn't just biological, it's also behavioral and social, reflecting how human expansion reshape the wildlife behavior. And of course, for birds, the concern is quite different. Bird strikes pose a significant aviation safety risk, an example of how wildlife interaction can scale up from local to national security issues. These incidents are often rooted in habitat disruption and loss of migration corridors. Uh, this season is actually a migration season of migratory birds from East Asian Australasian flyways. So I'm currently also monitoring that. And finally, bats. They are ecologically invaluable as pollinators and seed dispersal, but close contact or mishandled can expose human to rabies and other viral zoonosis. You're familiar with the COVID-19 pandemic reminded us just how tightly interconnected wildlife health and human health truly are. So, what does this table really shows is that every wildlife conflict has two phases, one medical, one ecological. And if we want to address these challenges effectively, we need an integrated One Health approach, one that protects both people and wildlife, because in the end, their fates are inseparable. All right. So next slides. Common conflict scenarios. Again, I can break it down to a chunk so that we can surely discuss every animal involved. So to begin with, it's snake bite again. Remain one of the most overlooked medical emergencies in areas of the Philippines because Philippines is an archipelago within the archipelago. Hence, it was listed as NTD by the WHO, but unfortunately, in the Philippines, it hasn't been listed yet in our local NTDs. So every year, hundreds of Filipinos are bitten, farmers, forest workers, children, and even illegal wildlife traders. And many of them never made it to hospital in time because, Philippines has a lot of problem in terms of medical services, transportations, so on and so forth. So from the medical standpoint, envenomation can cause paralysis, respiratory failure, hemorrhage, and some cases death within hours. These are entirely preventable outcomes if the patient receives prompt and appropriate medical care, including anti-venom administration and proper wound management. But unfortunately, again, Philippines has only one anti-venom. It's isotonic solution, monovalent anti-venom, intended for Naha philippinensis. We have three species of cobra, Naha philippinensis endemic to Luzon, Naha samarensis to Visayas and Mindanao, and Naha sumatrana subspecies Myolephis in Palawan. So we only have one anti-venom. But here's the challenge. In many remote communities, the first line of response isn't the rural health unit, it's the faith healer. I think Philippines is not the only one who has the same problem because people still turn to traditional remedies, herbal practices, or even rituals. And while these practices often come from deep cultural roots, they delay critical medical intervention sometimes until it's too late. This gap reflects not just a lack of access, but a lack of trust. and awareness. And many communities don't have available antivenom. Transport is limited. Healthcare workers may not be trained in snake bite. And I think that is part of the fact that not all medical doctors in the Philippines are trained to address the snake bite. So the problem isn't just the medical, it's systemic and sociocultural. And yeah, yet it's equally important to remember that snakes themselves are not the villains here. They play a crucial role as ecological pest controller, reducing rodent population that threaten crops and spread diseases. Eliminating snakes out of fear often backfire. So it disrupts local ecosystem and increases agricultural loss. So managing snake bite isn't just about saving human lives, it's about bridging healthcare, education, and conservation. We need a dual approach. So that is why the strengthening of rural health system with trained responders and accessible antivenom, and promoting community awareness that encourages coexistence rather than persecutions. And sorry for the images. I don't know how to blur that, but these images are actually an image from my fieldworks as a wildlife biology. So crocodile attacks, they're terrifying, yes, but they're also telling us something important. Each encounter is more than just a headline. Actually, it's a signal, a reflection of how our wetlands and rivers system are rapidly changing. From a medical perspective, crocodile attacks are true trauma emergency. Victims often present with massive soft tissue injuries, the one in the photos, lacerations, fracture, and even in some cases, crush injuries or drowning. Rapid control of bleeding, infection prevention, and surgical interventions are essential. And in many cases, survival depends only on first aid at the scene, but on how quickly the patient can be evacuated to facility with trauma care capability. But while we manage these cases medically, we also need to ask the ecological questions. Why are these encounters increasing nowadays? So the answer often lies in a shrinking wetlands, riverbanks, disturbances, and uh, encroachment into crocodile habitats as human activity expand into breeding or feeding grounds. These animals have fewer space left, and in contact with people becomes almost inevitable. So the photos you can see here is mangroves have been trimmed off. So the mangrove cannot support other wildlife like bats, monkeys. So ended up crocodiles don't have enough prey to uh, food that can support them, and then they tend to go outside the mangrove, and that's where human crocodile conflict happens. So yeah. And now what's even more interesting and crucial from a conservation standpoint is that we currently have an ongoing research focusing on the genetic study of crocodile populations in the Philippines. So we're analyzing DNA markers to understand whether some of these individuals may have migrated from nearby Southeast Asian countries, a question that remains open but has a major implication for species management and conservation policy. As you can see, we have three phylogenetic groupings here, the A, B, and C, which was collected from, the group A. Those were collected from Palawan, Hulu, Tawi-Tawi, and meaning these individuals co-interact with each other. Group C, the group C, which was collected from Zamboanga, Lanao, Cotabato, Surigao, and Tawi-Tawi, also interact with each other. Now, the two specimens from the group B are quite unique since they have never been interacted with the rest of the samples. You can see the B. This is actually Papa Dave. These two large crocodiles named Papa Dave and Papa Bulls, the two largest crocodiles caught last 2022 and the 2024 respectively in southern Philippines. But it's still hypothesis because we have no data from a nearby country to validate this theory. But this research will help clarify whether we're dealing with localized movement within the Philippine populations or broader regional migrations, a large crocodiles from Borneo, or Malaysia, Indonesia that went to swim to the Philippines, So we're dealing with the local regional migration, which could reshape how we think about the habitat connectivity and cross-border conservation strategy. So in every crocodile attack, there's a dual responsibility: the medical urgency to save lives and the scientific duty to understand the causes. Only by addressing both trauma and ecological restoration can reduce these encounters in the long run. So these photos actually is a small saltwater crocodile, the Crocodylus porosus, caught in one of the most popular resort in the Philippines, in Boracay, last July 26, 2024. It's around 5 feet crocodile and it's very slim. And you can see a lot of white specks on the body of the crocodile. These are actually barnacles. So barnacles tend to grow around 2 to 3 months if you're submerged in the saltwater environment. So theoretically, so to speak, this crocodile might be swimming for almost 2 to 3 months from the place that we don't know yet. So they are capable of, a saltwater crocodile are capable of crossing oceans. So these DNA studies have been needing more funds to do it. Anyway, let's proceed. Now, another frequently encountered is mammals, large and volant and non-volant mammals. For instance, the long-tailed macaque. I think Philippines is not the only country that have been a problem of this. They may look harmless, even playful sometimes. No, almost all the time. They're very playful. But in many parts of the Philippines, macaque have been adapted to urban edges, scavenging near homes, tourist sites, or farms. Medically, monkey bites are uh, so small, but they can uh, high risk of rabies, bacterial infection, and some viruses. The challenge is that many bite victims dismiss these injuries as minor, not realizing the potential of fatal outcomes. So from a conservation point of view, this conflict stems from habitat fragmentation and feeding by humans, which alter their behavior, natural behavior. So, the problem isn't just the monkey, it's also how we unintentionally train them to depend on us. So people tend to give food. So that is why if you visit some of the tourist spot that has a lot of monkey populations, there's a lot of signages telling that feeding are being prohibited. Feeding to wildlife is being prohibited. Now, wild boars or baboy ramo in our local term often come into conflict in agricultural areas. They destroy crops and even in defense, farmers sometimes use snares or firearms. Those interactions can result in serious goring injuries, like the one I told you a while ago. Deep punctured wound, fractures, and infection, of course. But ecologically, these animals play a crucial role in seed dispersal and soil turnover. So they're like farmers, large farmers of the forest, shaping forest regenerations. So losing them would mean a lot, that natural ecological engineering process. And then there are bats, of course, often misunderstood, sometimes feared, especially today, tomorrow, or the next 2 days is Halloween already. So, uh, but there's a side of, from a medical perspective, yes, bats can be reservoir of rabies and emerging viruses, especially when disturbed or handled. But here's the other side. They are vital pollinators and insect controller. Single bat can consume thousands of mosquitoes in one night, protecting crops and human health in ways we rarely recognize. So the bats also contributes to a huge pollinators. They are the ones, a major contributor to pollinate a durian. Much of us favorite, I also favorite durian. So I love durian, even it stinks, you know. Anyway, in the end, so when we look at these species, monkeys, wild boars, and bats, it's clear that each conflict tells a deeper story. It's not just about the medical risk, it's about how behaviors, land use, and ecological pressures drive these interactions. So again, the goal isn't to eliminate these animals, it's to understand the balance between public health and the ecosystem health, because every bite, every scratches, every encounter is a symptom of a much bigger environmental imbalances that medicine and conservation must address together. And yeah, so the emergency medicine conservation interface. So again, talking about HWC, most people think of emergency response, how to save the person who's been beaten or attacked or injured. And yes, from a medical perspective, that's always the priority. Stabilize the patient, prevent shock, control bleeding, and understand that species cause the injury, because this species often dictates the treatment. So like for example, if you get been bitten by pit viper, you cannot use antivenom from cobra. So something like that. So it's species specific treatment. So snakebite management, for instance, is very different from the crocodile attack or bats exposure, the viral exposure. But there's another side to this, the conservation perspective. While one team is treating the victim, another must ensure that the animal involved is handled ethically, not hunted down in retaliation, and that its population and behavior are properly documented. So currently, our challenge now, we still don't have unified demographic data on snake bite. My current thesis now is the first comprehensive demographic data of a snake bite of the Philippines, because we still don't have that data. I think in Southeast Asian country, we are the last country that hasn't been documented the whole burden of disease of snake bite. So what we see here is a shared interface, two worlds that used to operate separately, now realizing that they must work together. We must work together. Biologists, medical doctors, responders, wildlife enforcement officers. So yeah. And so a part of that emergency medicine conservation interface, this means coordination between healthcare workers and who provide clinical management, wildlife local authorities who handle animal welfare and regulations, and local researchers and responders who bridge science and community alike. These images sums up the things the Philippines is starting to do with the HWC. We train people from all walks of life to become responders of both human and wildlife. We call them as Wilderness Search and Rescue Philippines. This actually happened in Palawan, where we have the large populations of Indo-Pacific crocodile, the saltwater one, Crocodylus porosus. So these people are from the Bureau of Fire Protection Agency, wildlife enforcement officer, nurses, of course, dentists. We also have EMTs and even lawyers. We have lawyers there have been involved in this group of responders. This is where the One Health emergency framework comes in. It's not just about reacting to an incident. It's about preparing system where human, animal health, and ecosystem health are integrated in response. So this is me, along with other crocodile specialist group who are training the people of Palawan to respond whenever there are crocodile sighted that are outside on the habitat. And of course, that is why also the effort of the Philippine Toxinology Society is inclusivity of human-wildlife conflict workshop from all sectors. We train farmers, medical societies, tourism offices, of course, the scuba diving community, private individuals, and even faith healers. Yes, we involve the faith healers because if people go there as immediate treatment, we might as well steer the fact that whenever a patient go to the faith healer, he can actually recommend to go directly to the hospital instead of being treated by albularyo's. So imagine this, a standardized protocol where a snake bite case triggers both medical alert and vital visitor record, or where a crocodile attack leads to only a trauma care, but also to a habitat assessment and public education in nearby barangays. That's the future we're aiming for. An emergency response that save both lives and ecosystem, guided by science, compassions, and coordinations. Because, in the end, a true One Health approach means that no response is complete unless it considers every life involved. So, not just human. So, this is what actually we write on along with the Philippine government. So, the Philippine government created a manual on addressing human wildlife conflict. It hasn't been published yet. It's still under review, but this manual will be served to all local government units of the Philippines. So I'm one of the author who write under the snake incident. Somewhere you can actually read my name. And of course, it's a shameless plug. So we will have this upcoming first Philippine Toxinology Congress that will be held in Puerto Princesa City, Palawan. And we have invited a very genuine people of science, especially Dr. Khaldun and Taxa from Thailand. So you can register. I think the registration is still open. We will be discussing not just the first Philippine Toxicology Congress, but also the AMSEM, the Asian Marine Snake Envenomation and Poisoning. So we will gonna exchange knowledge. A lot of people will go there. So please do join. And yeah, so the future of wildlife conservation is actually in our hands. That the wildlife cannot speak for themselves. They cannot retaliate the same human retaliate to them. So we are the most intelligent animal, and we were supposed to be the one who defend them or understand them. Majority of the wildlife I've been presented a while ago are all misunderstood animals and must be treated equally, because we're not a part of nature, we're part of the nature. Okay, and I think that's conclude my presentations. I hope I'm not with a lot of time. I still have a lot of time. So thank you, everyone. I hope you learn, and I hope I speak to the voiceless animals, the misunderstood animals. And I hope that's a very short presentations I have here. You help me communicate with the public that human, wildlife, and environment are interacted in one health approach. So thank you, and good morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Marvin J. Sarmiento, for the insightful lecture on human-wildlife conflict approach to emergency care and conservation. So we hope that we can fully understand the WHO One Health approach, the complex relationship between human, animals, and environment. So on behalf of the 7th EMSS Organizing Committee, we extend our heartfelt appreciation for your valuable contributor to this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in expressing our warmest thanks to Mr. Marvin J. Sarmiento. So we will meet again during the forum session later. So before we move on to our next exciting session, we'll take a short break to allow everyone to stretch, grab a quick drink, or simply take a breather. During this time, we invite everyone to stay tuned and enjoy the multimedia presentation prepared by our organizing team. You'll be seeing highlights from our partner organization, upcoming conferences, and special events related to the emergency medicine, toxinology, and wilderness care. Again, I will remind the recorded previous episodes are now readily available at Prof. Khaldun Ismail YouTube channel. We'll post the links also in the chat box. Please take this opportunity to learn more about this exciting initiative and materials. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 7th Emergency Medicine online seminar series, week 4 focusing on environmental and wilderness medicine. So now it is my great honor to introduce our next esteemed speaker and a leading figure in Indonesian emergency medicine, Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri. A bit introduction for her. She completed her specialization in emergency medicine at Brawijaya University, Malang, Indonesia, and she is currently the head of the emergency unit at Awal Bros Pekanbaru Hospital and serves as the secretary of the medical committee at the same institution. Beyond her hospital leadership, Dr. Christina plays a vital national and regional role as the chair of Organization and International Cooperation of the Indonesian Association of Emergency Medicine, as well as the board member of the Asian Society of Emergency Medicine, contributing actively to regional collaboration and emergency care development. Today, Dr. Christina will share her insight on a fascinating topic on high altitude illness, new insight into the pathophysiology, treatment, and the prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri to deliver her talk on high altitude illnesses, new insight into the pathophysiology, treatment, and prevention. Now the floor is yours, Dr. Christina. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Hanafi, for the kind introduction. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the committee who prepared all this seminar series. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about high altitude illnesses. Okay, today I'll be sharing about high altitude illnesses, the old stories, because this syndromes has been known for a long time ago, and some new insights into the pathophysiology, treatment, and preventions. We'll also touch a bit about the future directions that or development that might be needed for the purpose of better prevention and especially management. This will be the outline for my topic today. We'll start with the historical context. Actually, this high altitude illness has been noted as early as from the ancient time when probably when Aristotle noted that the air is too thin for respiration during his expeditions in Central Asia, while there are also Chinese records referencing the notorious Headache Mountains dated as early as 30 before Christ. While there's also observed indigenous people who lived in the highlands, like the Tibetans, the Andeans, and the Ethiopian highlanders, that showed changes in their body response, their physiologic response to their environment conditions, their daily living conditions in the highlands. In the Tibetans, it's identified that they have enhanced hypoxic ventilatory response and a unique hemoglobin profile, while in the Andeans, the increased hemoglobin concentration and red blood cell mass is identified, while in the Ethiopian highlanders displayed higher arterial oxygen saturation without significant hemoglobin elevation. So different, although they're from the highlands, probably who living in high altitude, but this findings brings the conclusion that response is also not affected by the altitude only, but also with the surrounding environment conditions or situations, including temperatures, humidity, that might affect how our body responds to the changes. Well, in the scientific world, there are advances noted in scientific findings starting by the early 1900 when Paul Bert elucidated the fundamental role of partial pressure of oxygen and Dalton's law in the genesis of altitude-related hypoxia. His study affirming that it's hypobaric hypoxia rather than the increase of barometric pressure itself, or decrease of barometric pressure itself as the critical factor. So it's not only the decrease of pressures, but also the hypoxic condition. So it's hypobaric hypoxia, not only the changes of pressure. Well, there's a study done in 1946 called Operation Everest, and also some other high altitude expeditions that confirm that actually oxygen supplementation drastically improves and survivability under extreme hypobaric conditions. There are some landmark expeditions and case studies that sadly happen, but it brings more explorations and more efforts about identifying and managing high altitude illnesses. There's a noted tragedy in Mount Everest in 1996, where there are 16 people that did not survive after being trapped in a heavy storm in the Everest. It starts illustrations of both medical dangers and also complexities regarding surrounding high altitude endeavors. Several identified or lessons learned from the tragedies that at that time, there are inadequate adherence to ascent guidelines. There's also rapidly changing weather in the Everest. Hypoxia that experienced by the climbers lead to cognitive impairment that in the end resulting in poor decision making that made situations even worse, that finally brings to fatalities. At the same time, with our current situations, there's data show that there's persistent rise in high altitude tourism and recreation. These conditions increase the patient pool at risk of high altitude illnesses, especially at this time where people is become very social media aware, but not at the same time very well aware and well prepared for doing expeditions or doing adventures in the wilderness. That such conditions even pose more risk to them than what the environment itself brings. Okay. Now we'll move to the classifications and diagnostic criteria for high altitude illnesses, because okay, we'll start with the altitude ranges classifications. Altitude is categorized into high altitude that range from 1,500 to 3,500 meters above sea level, while very high altitude ranges from 3,500 to 5,500. Altitude more than 5,500 is considered as extreme altitude, while altitude more than 8,000 meters above sea level is called the often referred as death zone in many references, because their sustained human life is untenable, especially if it shows that it indicates that it requires a meticulous preparations if someone's plan to do an expeditions in such into that beyond the extreme altitude. Okay. High altitude illnesses itself consists of from the mildest form, that is the acute mountain sickness that we are probably already familiar with, is the AMS, and that also the other spectrum is the high altitude cerebral edema, that some also propose that this might be a more severe form of acute mountain sickness. Well, the other form of high altitude illnesses is the high altitude pulmonary edema, or HAPE. AMS typically occurs after 6 hours of exposures in the altitude, typically identified as altitude more than 2,500 meter above sea levels. It's characterized by headache, nausea, loss of appetite, fatigue, dizziness, and mild sleep disturbance. Different sources report incidents that range from 10% at the level of even lower, that is 2,000 meter above sea level. But there's also report mentioning that above, of course, that is when it's above 4,000 meters with rapid ascents, the incidence increase highly to 50%. Well, the more progressive or the more severe form of acute mountain sickness is the high altitude cerebral edema. That's this is a severe progressive neurologic disorder that present with ataxia, altered mental status, and rapid neurologic deterioration. This conditions is rarely occurring. That's noted only in 1.1 until 2% at the level of climbers who is observed at the level of 4,000 meters above sea level. Well, pulmonary edema, high altitude pulmonary edema is that is a non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema, has the rate even more rare compared to cerebral edema. That is only 0.01% at the level of 2,500 altitude of 2,500 meters above sea level. But as the altitude rises into 4,000 meter above sea levels, the incidence rise to 2 to 6%. High altitude pulmonary edema peaks within 2 until 5 days of rapid ascent, especially among young, physically fit individuals who tend to be more doing ascent more rapid, and also spirited. Sometimes the excitement makes is identified one of the factors that leads to a rapid ascent method that finally put them in higher risk or in higher incidence of high altitude pulmonary edema. As for diagnostic criteria, we're now using the 2018 revisions of the Lake Louise Acute Mountain Sickness Score that's been known way before that. In the previous edition, the previous version, there are 5 parameters include other than headache, GI symptoms, fatigue and weakness, and also dizziness. That is the sleeping disturbance. But now sleeping disturbance is taken out from the Lake Louise Acute Mountain Sickness Score. It's only the 4 parameters left. And but there's another functional scoring that is used to assess how severe or how incapacitating the mountain sickness conditions, acute mountain sickness condition happening in a particular person. So actually this is a self-assessment scoring that is suggested to be done in the form of survey. So usually the expedition doctor or the person who's in charge for managing health issue in an expedition would do the questions and answers to and climbers who's experiencing symptoms. So they will scale from 0 to until the highest score for each complaints is 3. As you can see the parameters and the scoring systems in the presentations you have before you. So it's either there's no complaint at all, or whether it's until the intensity of severe and incapacitating symptoms. So acute mountain sickness is considered present if there is a score of 3, total score of 3 from all parameters, but it must include headache at least at the score of 1. But a single 3 from headache symptoms would also already confirm that the person or the climber is having acute mountain sickness. As the clinical function score is also developed to identify how incapacitating the AMS symptoms that occur in a person. This is not affecting the diagnosis of acute mountain sickness, but this will affect the decision to make whether to do whether this patient required rapid descent or urgent descent. So it will define the manners whether when the need or identify the needs of evacuation to lower altitude. Okay. That is for the diagnosis criteria and also assess functional score for AMS. As we try to look in further in the pathophysiology of acute mountain sickness. As altitude changes, the conditions, the partial pressures, the atmospheric pressures, and also that in the end affects the oxygen saturation since our breath also changes. So at the sea level, we might have of course, we'll have in normal healthy individuals will have the normal partial oxygen pressure in the artery, and also our O2 sat will be normal. But as the altitude increase, as it's seen in illustrations I showed in the slides, the partial oxygen pressure in the artery will also decrease. This data is already summarized by some of the Dutch sports medicine enthusiasts in this form of table that might give us describe more clear descriptions about how the situations of altitude, how it affects the oxygenations in our body. Actually, this will not the only problems or stressors at altitudes. There are other situations that is cold or low temperature, low humidity. At the same time, there's increased solar and UV radiation, physical exertion, and also nutritional and fluid limitations. This all combined would add further stress to a climber's body, especially for those who are not used to it, not trained, not well prepared, not acclimatized to adapt in the high altitude conditions. Our body has may adapt into such conditions, just like what I've mentioned earlier in some that is noted in some indigenous people who live in the high altitude conditions. In acute phase, our body has several acclimatization mechanisms. Started with the earliest one is the hyperventilations that drives that's called the hypoxic hyperventilation, respiratory, that drives up alveolar, trying to increase the alveolar partial oxygen pressure and reduce carbon dioxides that's causing respiratory alkalosis. The hypoxic ventilatory response is actually mediated by our carotid body chemoreceptors and central control. There's also renal compensations mediated by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase that's causing bicarbonate diuresis to help offset alkalosis, allowing further increases in ventilations. There's also increased sympathetic tone that increase our heart rate and cardiac output surge to optimize tissue oxygenation. And there's also initial plasma volume reduction that increase our hemoglobin concentration in order to adapt to the low hypobaric hypoxemic situations in the environment to fulfill to meet the oxygen needs of the body. As the adaptation, the exposure happens longer, there will be more chronic adaptations to altitude in the forms of erythropoiesis because of the inductions of hypoxia inducible factor 1 alpha, HIF1 alpha, that increase the amount of erythropoietin and resulting increased hemoglobin mass. And there's also capillary proliferation that's trying to enhance tissue oxygen diffusions mediated by vascular endothelial growth factor and other HIF-induced genes. There's also ventilatory acclimatization. There is a reduction in partial pressure of carbon dioxide with maintained or elevated ventilation, while the increased glycolysis and increased mitochondrial efficiency is a form of metabolic adaptation, and also changes of enzyme level that's causing leftward shift of the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve that aim to enhance oxygen loading in the lungs to meet the increased need to ensure the oxygen needs in the body is fulfilled, or even though in the situations of low oxygen pressures in the environment. After the acclimatization mechanism or pathophysiology, now have a look to the pathogenesis of AMS and high altitude cerebral edema. The conditions where there's once someone's at certain level of altitude combined with all the physiologic stressors that face during an expedition in a high altitude environment, there will be a decrease of hypoxic when the hypoxic ventilatory response fail or decrease. At the same time, the metabolic demand increase, and there's also there's possible subclinical pulmonary edema that ends up in hypoxia. These hypoxic conditions cause an increase in cerebral pressure, cerebral blood flow, that in the end it will increase the intravascular pressure. This increase in the vascular pressure cause the activations of trigeminal vascular pain that lead to AMS. The other mechanism that might also cause AMS is the autonomic imbalance induced by hypoxia. Other ways that the hypoxia itself causing cytotoxic edema in the brain cells that cause increased brain volume and intermittent increase of ICP. This will further lead to activations of trigeminal-vascular pain and induce AMS. The increased brain volume and intermittent ICP itself might also lead to what is known as high altitude cerebral edema. And AMS, as it progresses, if the overlying cause is not managed, or if it's not properly identified and treated, it might also progress into high altitude cerebral edema. For high altitude pulmonary edema, it's actually driven by the hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstrictions or HPV, uneven pulmonary perfusions, and excessive capillary pressures and increased vascular leakage that end up combined with the endothelin 1 upregulation and decreased nitrous oxide bioavailability, end up in capillary stress failure that leads to non-cardiogenic protein-rich pulmonary edema. It's caused that's in the end causing the symptoms of increased breathlessness and decrease of OSAT level if it happens further. So the next thing that we always must always be able to identify and then do what's next. That will be our next questions. General principles when we're dealing with high altitude illnesses. First is early recognitions. We must know the risks, recognize early the symptoms, and always maintain a high index of suspicions. Even this never simplify even complaints and consider it as just, oh, it's just because of physical exertions. And also, when symptoms occur, cessation of ascent is must be considered. If symptoms occurred and not response to initial management or even got worse, then don't ascend further. That's one of the principles. If symptoms got worse and or even more severe, there are other more severe spectrums of high altitude illnesses occur in the form of either cerebral edema, or especially if it's already developed into pulmonary edema. Rapid descent is life-saving. So that would be the safest decision for the climbers or our patient. Oxygen supplementation is indicated for moderate to severe illness. So it's beneficial to have it on the go as a part of the expedition preparations, especially if we are dealing with extreme situations, and also especially if we're dealing with high risk populations or high risk individuals as that is a part of our team expedition team member. For mild AMS or altered mountain sickness, rest, hydrations, and a diet that's rich in carbohydrate and also simple analgesia is even often adequate to correct the symptoms, to relieve the complaints, and make the person able to proceed with the the plan of the climbing, but ascent can only be done if symptoms is fully resolved. After initial but in the form of moderate altered mental states, we need to give pharmacological interventions in the form of the first line will be acetazolamide, 250 milligram every 12 hours for adults, and sometimes in moderate AMS, the GI symptoms that's frequent in the form of nausea, even already occur, that antiemetic would be very beneficial. If available, you can administer oxygens for patients, for climbers who are suffering from moderate altered acute mountain sickness. If with this after that, after management, of course, we will have to observe or monitor our patients. Once when symptoms is not improving after the particular interventions, then a descent is required. As for climbers who already develop ataxia and also in other form of neurological deficits that indicates the high altitude cerebral edema. This is high altitude cerebral edema is a medical emergency, so immediate descent is important. Ideally, the descent must be done at least for 1,000 meter. If it's possible to do more, then it will be better. And oxygen supplementation must be provided to achieve oxygen saturations above 90% if available. Giving steroids in the form of dexamethasones, 8 milligram for the initial dose, and then 4 milligram after every 6 hours is also recommended for high altitude cerebral edema. If it's a portable hyperbaric chamber is available, it could be used in patients who already showed the symptoms of high altitude cerebral edema. And because using this hyperbaric chamber actually would simulate descent by increasing pressure and lowering effective altitude until 1,500 until 2,500 meter. Descent effect could be achieved by using this portable hyperbaric the portable hyperbaric chamber. But one of the challenges that it's not always a part of the preparations, not a must-have items in preparations of high altitude expeditions for the time being, because of the issue of weight. Because I think the lightest portable hyperbaric chamber available now is weigh at least 15 kilogram only for the chamber. Okay. As for supportive care should still have to be administered in the form of recovery positions in patients who already decreased level of consciousness, and also provide warmth or thermoregulations and monitoring for airway compromise and reassurance. It's also immediate request for evacuations or descent would already be indicated in the presence of high altitude cerebral edema. In a high altitude pulmonary edema, immediate descent is urgent and mandatory, and exertion should be minimized as it exacerbates pulmonary hypertension. So patients must have a very minimal physical activities, oxygen supplementation given to maintain saturations above 90%. If it's possible, use high flow, but if it's not, you just use what you have. And pharmacologic adjunct, we have to start giving the calcium channel blocker, and the other options is the phosphodiesterase inhibitors to manage the pulmonary hypertension that to prevent further further progressions of the pulmonary edema. The nifedipine could be given with in a slow release form, that's 30 milligram every 12 hour, or 20 milligram every 8 hour, depends on what is the dose you have at that time. And then as phosphodiesterase inhibitor, you can use what the exact drug that is already studied is that's more frequently studied is tadalafil, but it is said that sildenafil 50 milligram every 8 hours will have the similar effect to tadalafil 10 milligram every 12 hours. But be cautious when hypertension already occurred when administering all these medications. Okay, and with concomitant dexamethasone, even without the present of high altitude cerebral edema, can be considered, especially if there is a high altitude cerebral edema. If there is a possibility to support oxygenation by providing CPAP through any means available, that would be useful. But in the situations where it's in the wilderness, if you have no device, then just the low flow oxygen without positive airway pressure would be okay. But in the this could be started once the emergency medical team that evacuates the patients with more complete devices present and devices available, then this should be done in order to achieve the targeted oxygen saturations. I tried to summarize the medications used in high altitude illnesses in this form of table, so it might be used for your future references and easier use. It might be printed in the form of card, could be kept in the first aid kit, so it could be useful. It could be used as a quick reference when it's needed. Okay. The other non-pharmacological and support measures that could that still has place in managing acute mountain sicknesses is also, of course, basic first aid consisting of warming, positioning, frequent monitoring, and minimal movement for patients, especially if they have severe disease or concomitant trauma. Immobilizations for injuries that occurred during descent or evacuations. If there is situations that is causing cardiac arrest, CPR at altitude might be considered, but be aware of the always remember that the safety, you have to ensure safety first. That's what I'm trying to say. Because we have to adjust for hypoxic environment, low temperature environment where fatigue occurs more rapidly. and also vigilance in advanced airway management once equipment available is needed. But if it's not there, then you just have to deal with what you have. As although portable hyperbaric devices proven to be beneficial, but proper training is required to be able to use it effectively. So this should be one of the things that should be included in the not only the device there, but team should also always be prepared and aware about how to use these particular devices. Team preparations of expeditions should include at least portable pulse ox, if it's possible, supplemental oxygen checklist and advanced first aid capability that will and portable hyperbaric devices in the very ideal settings. Okay. As the old saying, prevention is always still be prevert to cure. Or prevention is still the best strategy. So I would like to share some prevention strategies for high altitude illnesses to you all that I hope it might be useful just in case you are asked to be involved in preparing or you're asked to be an expedition doctor or involved in certain expedition team preparations. Gradual ascent and acclimatization plans is very essentials. Make sure that everyone adhere to the key rules that we should not ascend more than 500 millimeter in sleeping altitude per day when once you've reached the altitude above 2,500 meter above sea level. And every 1,000 meter gain of altitude, there should be additional one rest day. So you cannot directly continue to ascend the next day. So the next day will be a rest day in that particular altitude before then you ascend for the following day. So there has to be a for every 1,000 meter altitude gain should be rest at least 24 hours in that particular altitude, and rest at intervals when you're having rest day. Make sure you really use that day to rest to allow physiological adaptation and reduce acute illness risk. Okay. There are some studies that shows the effect of pre-acclimatizations that in the form of either in the form of stage ascent, intermittent hypoxic training, or simulated environments. There's a group of climbers that has stage ascent by spending several days at moderate altitude before ascending to high or extreme altitudes. It is mentioned that stage ascent or pre-acclimatization strategy would be effective, although even though it started not in a very short-term period before the expedition itself. So it even when it started like it's mentioned that it's until 2 months prior to the high altitude exposure that itself it's still giving benefit and still give the acclimatization effect expected. While in intermittent hypoxic training, there is in the form of short repeated exposures to normobaric or hypobaric hypoxia that can enhance ventilatory acclimatization, increase oxygen saturation, preserve cognitive function, and sleep quality. Thus, this in the end will lower the altered acute mountain sickness risk. This was this was done in the form of a short uh, a short stay climb, and then going back to the sea level altitude, and then it's repeated several in made it as repeated episodes before the initiation of the expedition itself. There is also a simulated environment using the studies trying to look at the use of these hypoxic tents and intermittent breathing protocols that is increasingly used by athletes and high altitude workers. So currently, it's also said that protocols must be sufficiently intensive, that it requires multiple hours daily, that sustain over weeks, and individualized based on the based on the climber's condition. As pharmacological prophylaxis could be used by starting astazolamide half dose, then our therapeutic dose it is 125 milligrams, starting 24 to 48 hours before ascent. And steroids and other NSAIDs could also be used in the form of dexamethasone, but still it's not a substitute for acclimatization. Using of steroids must be used with caution, especially for those who have underlying metabolic conditions. Steroids or dexamethasone is particularly indicated for individuals who is unable to tolerate astazolamide, or those who has to go for rapid ascents. For example, the rescue team that has to respond for immediate descent or immediate evacuation request. NSAID in the form of ibuprofen, 600 milligram every 8 hours may help, but the study this regimen is less established in the form of as a study result. As the medications that is used for managing high altitude pulmonary edema is only indicated for prophylaxis, only for non-susceptible individuals. It's not recommended for routine prophylaxis because of its systemic side effects and hypotension risk. Okay, there are also some studies reporting trying to explore the possibility of using budesonide or ginkgo biloba containing supplement, but it's not currently not recommended owing to inconsistent evidence. While other preventive considerations in terms of preventions of high altitude illnesses is still the general recommendations. Avoid, number one is avoid alcohol and sedatives, because these two agents will depress ventilation and exacerbate hypoxemia. While and also appropriate physical activity. Be aware with your every climber should be aware of their own conditions. Make sure maintain moderate your activity level in the moderate level. Avoid overexertion, especially during the early phase of acclimatizations. Portable oxygens is something valuable, especially for susceptible individuals and also for remote locations. And make sure person, the susceptible individuals, their team members or their body knows how to use it. And also, there should be group health monitoring, so routine check of pulse ox, symptom scoring, using the Lake Lewis score would be beneficial in detecting as a part of our early detection of high altitude illnesses. And this is some conditions that is considered as risk factors and susceptible, that I classified as risk factors and susceptible populations based on several references that already well established. Is the most significant, actually the most significant one, that's why I put it in the first risk factor, is history of previous high altitude illness. So this is a strong predictor of recurrence, and in this individuals or populations, it's advised to use more conservative ascent, uh, use prophylactic pharmacologic agent, and also to do close monitoring. Children and young adults are also high risk of high altitude pulmonary edema that can develop after rapid passive ascent. Remember, sometimes children could also be in the form of carried. There are some climbers who brings their youngsters to certain uh, high altitude environments. And also, fitness level is not protective. Those who are usually very fit and good fitness level uh, are considered more susceptible because they tend to be or do they tend to be more doing the physical activity in the vigorous conditions that actually it will increase the risk, and where actually when we are acclimatizing into high altitude, it needs a gradual increase and not a very rapid or vigorous physical activity. And those with comorbidities, of course, especially very susceptible to high altitude illnesses, especially those with pre-existing cardiopulmonary disease and anemia that require specialist consultation before the initiation or the starting an expedition in high level. And for those who are pregnant, actually an altitude above 3,000 meter above sea level is discouraged. As an effort to further explore the possibilities of how to detect, how and manage high altitude illnesses in the future, is that some centers are trying to do AI and machine learning models to predict the occurrence of or the incidence of high altitude illnesses, especially in making formulations based on physiological data in high-risk individuals. The other area that is being explored is the use of stem cell therapies to due to their anti-inflammatory and tissue reparative effect in acute high altitude illnesses. Currently, is still in animal models and early phase trials, but hopefully that will be available to for helping those who experience high altitude illnesses, especially in the more severe form like cerebral or pulmonary edema. Intelligent oxygen and monitoring system is trying to be developed as already incorporated into some to a lot of wearables nowadays. Wearables that's recording OSAT, heart rate, and ambient conditions can enable personalized guidance for the climbers. And this should be backed up by real-time. It's also uh, team preparations that will be able to respond once further deterioration or deterioration detected in one of the parameters. And also improve field device that is next generation portable hyperbaric chambers that is lighter and easier to deploy is under development. To conclude the presentations, actually rapid recognition, prompt intervention, including descent, oxygen, and pharmacotherapy, and robust preventive strategies that prioritize acclimatization and stage ascent is very essential in dealing with high altitude illnesses. Ascend slowly and listen to symptoms. Do not ascend with illness and descend without delays. If severe illness develops, will still be the pearls of managing a high altitude illness. As we and if we are asked as a emergency physicians to be a part of preparations of expeditions preparations in the high altitude environment, always ask about recent altitude exposure and ascent history in relevant patients. Apply the Lake Lewis scoring systematically in the field and ensure group-based monitoring during the expeditions, and advocate for strong expedition medical and logistical planning, including simulation exercise. And use a clear, well-designed infographics when we're educating those who are preparing for an expeditions and patients counseling to bridge the gap between the complex science we've learned and the practical action needed in the wilderness. I think that's all I would like to share. This is sharing a picture of the two of the latest high altitude injuries that sadly end up in fatalities in one of the high mountain in Indonesia, that is Mount Rinjani in West Nusa Tenggara. One is a Brazilian and one is a Malaysian, if I'm not mistaken. And this one of the these are the examples of the situations where we need to be able to really have to prepare, like what Prof. Sarik mentioned in the first sessions. Preparations is the key, and you have to be prepared in facing anything in the wilderness. To conclude this presentations, this is one of the lessons I learned so far as being an emergency physician, and I like to hike. I like to do mountain hiking too, but one thing that is that the mountains are unchanging, but our preparedness and knowledge can turn what is considered as risky ventures into safe and enriching experiences. With this, I conclude my presentations. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Roslan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri, for the enlightening presentation on high altitude illnesses. So, on behalf of the EMSS organizing community, we extend our deepest appreciation for your time and contribution for this year's seminar series. We truly hope to continue learning from your work and collaborating in future programs. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in expressing our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri. And now we will move on to our forum session. Unfortunately, Prof. Dr. Shaikh Farid and Mr. Marvin J are unable to join our session today, but we have Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri, and we are grateful to be joined by Prof. Khaldun Ismail, Professor and Consultant Emergency Physician from Hospital Chancellor Tuanku Mukris, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, prominent and renowned figure in the emergency medicine fraternity within this region and beyond. So I will read aloud the question, and maybe both Prof and doctors can give some comment or opinion on the question. So the first question regarding the acute care in the wilderness. What is the common mistake should be avoided during providing the emergency care in the wilderness? I think maybe we can start with Dr. Christina first, with her experience in mountain climbing in Indonesia or in the overseas. Maybe perhaps can give the comment on this question.
Okay, thank you. So answering the questions, about the common mistakes that usually occurred, common should be avoided in providing. First is that trying to be a hero, that is a big no-no. Considering ensuring safety. Safety starts with the helpers, the rescuers, or someone who's providing care, and also the environment, because we don't want additional victim, and that sometimes the we have to press the eagerness to rush in and to do, because this is not a hospital. We are very used to do everything rapidly in the emergency department, but in the wilderness we have to be very aware with the surroundings and what resources we have. I think that's one thing. And also I think that's the biggest one of the biggest problems that I identified in my experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Christina. So, Prof. Khaldun, any comments on the common mistake, maybe your real life experiences during the expedition in the wilderness?
Okay, thank you so much for having me as a so-called substitute for maybe Dr. Shefarid and Dr. Marvin. Good to see you, Christina. Welcome to
Good
the
to see you,
MSS, finally. So as Dr. Christina said and Dr. Shefarid was mentioning earlier, it's basically the preparation. So if you have something that occurred, most likely part of the preparation was not optimally planned. On top of that, as Dr. Sheikh Farid shared one recent case, we had a mountain climber found that on top of the mountain, he reached his goal, but apparently did not come down. So that also reflect he was left alone on his own after a so-called complaint of difficulty breathing or injury, and the rest supposed to call for help, but they arrived late and couldn't find him, I think. So that is a danger. So maybe communication is another issue in that situation, right? So they go out, but difficult to find help from communication. We had experience, well, I personally had the experience also in helping to retrieve somebody from on top of a mountain following a snake bite, 3 of them, but luckily they managed to communicate with their devices, call for help, and unfortunately the rescue team for the land rescue, which means like Malim Gunung, the mountain rescuers, take time to reach the place and they couldn't find them. So that's one thing. So what can we do? So we did aerial rescue, medevac. So we got the helicopter from the fire and rescue to look for the victim, but it also have difficulty, as you know, this rotor blade, rotor helicopter cannot fly at night. Okay, so it's only during the day. So what do you do then throughout the waiting period? So as Dr. Krishna, the Shefari said, in the wilderness situation like this, time may not be the important thing. It's how you manage at that time, right? So how you optimal your management. So through our mobile communication, at that time Rex was involved, myself personally. So we asked the patient and the people that is with the patient
7,5 cc nih.
to immobilize the patient, warm, reduce any constricting, clothing or any tourniquets if they applied should not be applied, and basically keep calm. Obviously, some people said do not provide any food or water, but in this situation, it will take some time for the rescue effort to arrive, right? So he might be in shock, and true enough, his swelling was really significant at the beaten area. So he might lose fluid in the third space. So if you don't provide fluids through the oral, which is they only have that means, then you might make the thing worse. So we said, oh, drink as much as you can, or if you want, and if there is pain. So they did bring paracetamol, if I'm not mistaken. So he said, okay, you can give him paracetamol for the pain. So that sort of like remote monitoring of the situation by communication with experts in the field, I think buy time and minimize further harm until such a time when the helicopter arrived. So like Dr. Christina gave the example of the Mount Rinjani case, they tried to get to her when she fell, but it's because of, very difficult, they couldn't climb down. And I think she was down there for a few days. And we don't know if they managed to send down any supplies for her, like food, water, whatever, while buying time for the medevac helicopter rescue. So unfortunately, she passed away also. So these cases, maybe we can learn that in Austere situation like this, communication, I think, besides Dr. Shefari said adrenaline, I think communication is very important from the start, and that will probably be high up in the planning stage of whatever expedition that you're going to do or activities you're going to do. So this is the thing that I think, as the question asks, what are the common mistakes? I think inadequate planning for communication, in such activities. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Khaldun, for the insight comment. Again, from the floor, with the question of polytrauma victim in the wilderness. So how do we decide between moving the patient versus securing the scene and get expert help to evacuate the patient? Which is safer, and what are the factors to guide the decision, whether to scope run or treat at the scene or evacuate the patient? I think maybe we can invite Dr. Christina back. Any comment on the polytrauma victim in the wilderness?
Has Dr. Sheikh Farid respond to the question in the Q&A box before? If he has responded, then we read his response first.
I think Prof. Farid will not be available
Okay.
live.
I mean, in the Q&A box, if he has responded by text, you can read the response, including also Mr. Marvin.
Oh.
No, so it's nobody responded. So Christina, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, in case okay, I think the decision would be very person would be very individual based on the situations and what kind of polytrauma situations you're having, and what in which part of the wilderness and what are the hazards you have or you experience at that time being. The general rules actually still applied, that the whether we scoop and run or stay and play, it's still the same applied, but it has to be modified based on you have to balance between what resource you have at prior to the arrival of the evacuation team. But the basic rules also, that once you have situations that you cannot, you have limitations, call for help. That's why reaching out for help, so that you will have someone to come for you, or at least some or an equipment sent to you. Probably I'm aware that there are several regions who are already practicing of sending supplies via drones to make it to reach the remote areas or challenging environments. But so that's one thing. It's which one is safer? It's very uh, uh there's no one rule. There's no one rule that could be applied for every conditions. It would be very individual based on the uh complexity of the polytrauma, what life-threatening issues you have at that time being, and then what resource you have, and the environmental hazards. But once you're in the wilderness, I think the basic principles will be, once the care needed is beyond the basic first aid you have, then you just call for help. It will always be safer, I think. That's my what I can share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Christina. So back to Prof. Khaldun.
Yeah.
Any
So
trauma?
yeah, so in polytrauma cases, I think Dr. Farid already sort of like put up in his talk. It's about patients' comfort at that juncture in time where you're still waiting for maybe evacuation team to arrive. And as you know, Dr. Farid also showed people who are being evacuated. And I think Mr. Marvin also showed pictures of how they evacuate people from site. It's not in position of supine, it's a position of comfort for patient, because the travel time or transport time is going to not smooth. It's not like on air that you just glide through. No, this is up and down the mountain, and people will shake you, and some of the team that carry you might also fell down, and you
Yeah.
might fall down with the patient. So this increased issue with monitoring the patient as well throughout the process of evacuating. So polytrauma, possibility of bleeding, and then movement will cause rebleeding. So this might have a profound effect on the volume of patient. You might get shock. So how do you monitor that throughout the process? Yeah, are you going to carry a monitoring device with you throughout during your program? And that also being answered by Dr. Shefari. Is it depends on your how many people are with you. If you have more people, more equipment, more complete set of response can be carried with you. But if you are like one or two people, obviously you can't, you are limited by the number of things you can carry with you. So I think the communication device is going to be very important in order for you to get, and then do, in the first aid, as Dr. Christina mentioned, the principles. And then it's just buying time, and then, as Dr. Shefarid said, pray as well. So hopefully that will calm the patient down, and calm yourself down as well. Yeah, so it's very difficult, and I think it's going to be again boils down to how you prepare and plan all these things, all these activities. And are you going to send in, like, for example, that snake bite case I tell you is very difficult terrain, and the guy that got bitten was is a man, and the other two people that with him was, two petite ladies, so they cannot carry him out, obviously, right? So they send in the rescue team, and that takes time. And how to get out also in such a mountainous area, up and down. And as you know, our forest is different. Our jungles is different to maybe, some of the mountains that we see in Everest as well. There are not many trees, not many obstacles,
Ours
So that also pose need planning, really. Yeah, so you have to know what are the obstacles that you have to overcome if something happens, right? So as Dr. Sefari said, you go up 2 hours doesn't mean you come down 2 hours. It could be longer. Yeah. So so again, I said it's the planning stage. It's very, very important what you carry. Are you going to start carrying IV line with fluids now or not? So those are the logistics you have to think about in the planning stage. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Khaldun, for your comments. And a few questions have been answered actually online. I just read aloud and see the response from Mr. Marvin J. So the first question, in Eastern Malaysia, crocodile attacks frequent occurrence. What method would you recommend to reduce these conflicts? So the answer from Mr. Marvin J. First, we need to check the commonality of the incidents and the circumstances leading to the attacks. This will help us draft a method to address the human-crocodile conflict at your place. So the strategy drafted in Philippines may not be suitable to Malaysia because there is no one-size-fits-all strategies to address such incidents. The next question
Can we respond to that as well?
Sure.
Maybe Christina, you have any issues with crocodile bites in Indonesia? Experience?
Not many for crocodile bites as far as I know, Prof.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so the area that was mentioned in Sabah is correct. We have several cases. Most of them did not survive. Crush injuries, complications, rhabdomyolysis from crush. So those are the things that kill the patient if they were rescued, but some were retrieved after a few days. So and saltwater issues. Now crocodile is in the limelight because we see them in areas where there are a lot of holiday makers, playing by the sea and beach. And recently, we also retrieve, rescue in Penang, if I'm not mistaken, crocodile in the sea. And Penang is known, Batu Ferringhi is a known touristy area where people go swimming. So this issue of wildlife human conflict, as Marvin mentioned, we have to understand what actually made this conflict occur more frequently. So one of the things that Marvin mentioned was the destruction of the habitat. And I think what pushes the animal to closer to human is because of our activities destroying the habitat. So if the habitat in this case, mangrove area, which has been cleared, then that so-called root cause for such animal to move out from their environment should be addressed. Either replanting back the mangrove forest, protecting the mangrove shoreline, and so on and so forth. On top of that, obviously, as Marvin mentioned, part of the One Health are the victims themselves, the people who are actually living in those areas, or people going to the beaches where it's known to be hazardous. Are they aware of such incident, or are we aware about what to do or to protect themselves? Again, it goes back down to communication. How do we communicate all this information to the public? It's no use if we waited or we give information only for us, the healthcare providers, because we don't want to see any victims if possible. So prevention is better than cure, as Dr. Sheikh Farid earlier mentioned, right? Prevention is key. So similarly with snake bites as well, all these animal bites and stings, all prevention is important. So how do we communicate this information to the public? And we need to get the mainstream media, we need to get the powers that be, to the agencies that is actually involved, animal, wildlife, and so on, to look into the solution of One Health. So I give another good example that we had was people got bitten by animals or dangerous animal or venomous snakes, not from Malaysia, not from our country. But when we refer back the case to the wildlife department, they said these animals are not in the list of the IUCN protected animal, therefore they cannot do anything. People can just bring anything if it's not in that list, which I think reflects a very narrow or very segregated way of managing such issues. So the One Health concept was not applied, right? So if the One Health concept is applied, it's an animal issue. The people who are managing the animal, what we call laws and regulation, and should be able to also protect not just the animal, but to protect human as well. And that is not reflected in our wildlife act in Malaysia. So that needs to be upgraded to reflect the One Health approach in managing, for example, conservation issues or wildlife issues. So similarly with this crocodile issue, is coming up. It's not venomous animal, so it's not in my territory. So I'm not worried. But then the concept, the principles apply. So you need to look into how to manage this in those lines. So we'll talk about this more during the Congress, first Philippine Congress on Toxinology, this December in Palawan, Port Princesa. I will be there as well. I hope Christina will join us, and the rest of you will join us there as well. So many of these concepts will be discussed during that Toxinology Congress and MSEM. Okay.
So thank you, Prof. Khaldun. So the next question, during your experiences of during research in the wilderness, is there any rules to identify venomous insect or animals? I think maybe some of the rules that laymen said, the vibrant, colorful is dangerous. Maybe is it applicable in scientific way? So maybe Prof. Khaldun and have any said about that?
Is Mr. Marvin answer the question? No.
Yeah, they answered the question. The way to find it is through the Congress. So it's very
Okay.
hard. It's very hard to say because it's
Okay.
very wide.
So the answer is no, we don't. Again goes to awareness. I think public doesn't know everything, and we cannot trust. Not trust. I mean, we can't just rely on what is provided by verbal communication from the victims, what beat them, and so on. So it's a very big area. People don't realize it. think, oh, okay, snake bite, okay lah, but not common. But insect bite, yeah, it's just a small pinch, not important. But until they get the situation where they might develop anaphylaxis, they might get issue in future where initial encounter might lead to hypersensitization and also then the subsequent anaphylaxis in the next. So how do you prepare for that? So those are not being addressed in many of our healthcare situation, right? In a healthcare setting. So we just treat pain, swelling, go home. That's it. After that, what happened? Did we educate our public in that sense to be more careful what could happen and the near future for subsequent sting, how they can actually protect themselves by keeping vigilance around the house. If you see something, don't go and do it yourself. We have other agencies that can help you. What do you know the number to call, who to call. So these things are, I think, not being addressed enough, relying on what it looks like and so on. That I think with nowadays development of the camera on your phone can be easily solved. You take a picture and get it identified by somebody who is verified in the area. So yeah, as Mr. Marvin says, so see you in the Congress. We'll address these issues because there's so many, many, many animals or organisms that we cannot overgeneralize. Many of them are being overgeneralized on how to identify. Yeah.
So next question, encounter wildlife animal. Is there any basic technique or skill to save us from the animals? So answered from Mr. Marvin, they won't attack unless provoked. Most of the time, they're most likely to flee than to get to get into fight. Whenever any wild animal encounter, please give them space to get away and know the pattern, know the breeding season or migration of the wildlife may help a lot. So any other information or comments do you like to add on, Dr. Christina? Basic techniques, survival skill, encounter wild animal.
I think Mr. Marvin already covered most of the important aspects.
Right. So I just add on a bit about Marvin was saying is correct. Most of these encounters are due to provocation, but some of the animals are not being provoked, but they've been stalking us. So you have to understand, for example, we're having an issue now also with wildlife like the tiger, right? The tiger. So it's already encroaching on Cameron Highlands. So be careful when you are doing your singing around the tea plantation. There could be a tiger watching you, and if he feels that you are delicious enough, then you might be the next meal. So this is another issue of the question. We have sighting of such animals. We are now just waiting the time for case to happen, or are we going to do something about it, right? So the question is why these animals are encroaching into these Cameron Highlands, because Cameron Highlands is already established. But why is it nowadays we see more and more sightings of these animals? So that's where the works like Marvin, going into investigating the root cause. So most likely in this situation is that we know of from our links with Perilitan is the food source. So the food source of these big cats being reduced either by naturally or by sickness. For example, the wild boar, the deers, they might have issues with plague or not plague, infection, and they die, and therefore the food source is reduced. Therefore, the big cats who are their natural predators had to move and seek for other alternative. And hunger will drive them to actually attack human. We are not natural predators, not natural food source for these animals. But if we provide the opportunity and we are not aware about what's going on, then we might get into that incident. Similarly, with the as we shared just now, the crocodile, the saltwater crocodile, it's the same kind of I think dynamics being the root cause and so on. So we dare not to provoke a crocodile, right? We don't go around crocodile and then knock his head. No, we don't do that. So it's not about just when we provoke them. It's about providing the opportunity for such incident or encounter to occur. And then the next question you ask, then why that happened? Okay. So many other accidents involving animals. For example, I get snake bites, like the climber just now. He did not see where he placed his hands when he was reaching out to, while hiking. So he got bitten with the snake just relaxing there. The snake is not attacking him. He is the one that's touching the snake accidentally. It's not by provoke in terms of consciously. Okay. So, but we do have cases of provoking, and then you get into that accidents. Okay, so it's not just about animals' fault. It's about not just about human fault. So it's a one health. Is again, you have to look at both situations. Okay.
Okay. So another question regarding the skills. It is true if you see a crocodile or an alligator on the land, you should run in a zigzag pattern so that the crocodile cannot catch up. So the answer from Mr. Marvin, no, it's a miss, it's a no. You just run straight away from the point of attack. No zigzag, no need to do zigzag pattern. So any so from
So
Sheldon,
Dr. Christina, if you encounter a crocodile on land, what do you do?
I just run as fast as I can.
Yeah, you'll be surprised at how fast a crocodile can run, because you think they don't run fast, but they have bursts of energy that they launch forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Similarly, with the big Komodo dragon, for example, they can
Yeah.
run very fast in Komodo, but in Malaysia, when you say crocodile on land, we call it buaya darat. So that's a different term altogether. Safer for me than for you, Christina, but no issue with buaya darat. But then, if it's a wildlife, wild buaya, yeah, you can actually escape by first moving away from them as fast as possible. Yeah. In the water is we cannot say how you're going to run. You need to swim, and the thing is, crocodiles swim faster than you. So it's difficult. But on land is, just don't stay there. A snake is different. A snake you can stay not moving, and it will just move away. It might crawl up to your leg and so on, but it will move away from you if you're not moving. But also again, what kind of snake? If the snake is already marking you, like for example the python, the longer you stay there, the likelihood that you will be coiled around you, will coil around you, and that's it. So staying, how you react to certain situation might have to be modified according to the type of animal, even the species of the animal. Yeah. Okay. So that's why it's very interesting, this topic. Okay.
So still have to do species ID, right, Prof?
Yeah, not the species ID, but moving away from anything is okay. But certain things, not moving. If you're too close, for example, to the snake, then might just stay calm and still will be helpful. When it's a bit further away, then move away. Yeah, I can't help. I can't answer if it was a tiger though. So tiger show is another issue. So anyway, okay. Yeah. Hanafi know what tiger show is because he's laughing, so he must be experienced. Okay.
Okay, move on to another question from the floor. Muhammad Rusdi Ahmad Rusmili asking specific to the Philippines region, is there any recent outbreak of rabies caused by bat or flying fox in the Philippines? Is there any differences in terms of outbreak pattern between bats and flying fox? Maybe I can open the floor. If no answer, then we will request Mr. Marvin opinion and we'll post the opinion on the web later.
Yeah, I think because it's directly for specific for Philippines.
Yeah, for Philippines.
So in Malaysia, we don't. I'm not sure about Indonesia. You have any issues with rabies and flying fox or bats?
Currently, no, Prof. It's more from the other animals, not
Okay.
from bats.
Yeah, because some places, flying fox or big bats are also part of the meal. People go hunting and eat them. So, for example, some parts of South America, so they eat bats. But that also increase the conflict between not conflict contact between human and animals. So yeah, but so far our side rabies and bats are not in Malaysia, for example, rabies is still endemic in Sarawak. It's just the only state that is still rabies. We just had one death recently from rabies in Sarawak, human case. So it's still an issue. And the bordering countries, Brunei, Kalimantan, and Sabah, uh, you know, might be at risk as well. But in Peninsula, so far we have not declared any rabies cases involving human that's confirmed. So the vigilance is mainly in Sarawak about rabies, but that is mainly from a bite from rabid dogs. Okay, so it's not bats. Yeah.
So
The
then,
majority of rabies, 90% of cases of rabies are canine related.
So to the next question, I think most of the question is about life saving technique upon encounter animals, wildlife animals. So I will combine the question. So the first question, should you never turn on your back while encountering wildlife? The moment you see them, a crocodile bite, say on the leg, what is the first thing you should do? And on the bear attack, I don't know which bear mentioned, whether it's a grizzly bear, sun bear, what is the best action for the survival? Specifically, is the strategy of playing dead? Is a technique promoted in the net? The safe for the common people? Is this a reliable tactic? I think we open the floor to the answer to give the comment of this both two questions.
Christina, you want to answer this?
I don't think I have.
I think standard answer is run.
Yes.
but,
Yeah.
but then these animals, as I said just now, some of them can run faster than you. The sun bear, for example, can run faster also than you. You running away from an elephant, the Asian elephant also, it can be very fast. We see in the some of the posts online, people crossing the street, they chase after the motorbike, right? Chase after the car, this elephant. So I don't know what can you do. Maybe Dr. Sheikh Farid's recommendation is also come into play. Pray, yeah, have faith. If you don't have any, yeah. Anyway, and attend the courses. As I said just now, is every animal will have a different way of reacting to your presence. So some of them you can stay still. You want to play dead. If you get, to avoid death, you play death. So some of them of this advice, like from the experience of grizzly bear attacks in the US, say you don't provoke it. The more you provoke, the more you move, they will attack you. But then in attacking as well depends on why the animal attack you. If they first attack you because it want to eat you, then no matter how dead you are going to play, you will be eaten anyway. So that's real death. But if let's say it was attacked because you are entering their territory, they're territorial as well, might see you as a threat, then it might not be hungry at the time, and might play that might be life saving. You might not be but you might die of scratches and so on. Yeah. So it's all depends on how you interact with these animals and how the animals are at the time when you encounter them. I think. Yeah.
Okay, so we move on to the next question. So most of the further question will be related to the high altitude illnesses. So the first question, how widely available is the portable hyperbaric devices, and what about its cost and maintenance? And by using portable hyperbaric devices, is it going to jeopardize the decline process of the victim? I'll invite Dr. Christina first to answer this question.
Okay, thank you for the questions. About the portable hyperbaric chamber, it is not widely available. That's why it is said that it's when it's available, it could be used. And about the cost and maintenance, it is still considered, especially the one that is suggested to for the high altitude expeditions is the one that is not with the hard case, but the soft case, so it's easier to carry, but still the uh, logistic issues of bringing it up, it's challenging because the chamber itself or the lightest that I can find in the market is still around 15 kilogram only for the chamber. But it could be beneficial if for the situation where rapid descent is needed, but it cannot be done probably due to timing when it's nighttime, when you don't have, or it's stormy weather that does not allow the descent to happen. At least it will, because we can create the effect of descent until 2,500 meters by using the chamber. And so actually it's something valuable in such a valuable, it's a valuable resource. But since that's why I put it in the future directions about people and tech companies are trying to explore the possibility of developing a more lightweight and easily operated hyperbaric chamber, because yes, the cost is still very high. That's why it's not widely available. And maintenance, the it's not that it still required specific measure. Of course it will have it's not as simple as wipe and clean, but it's will require a specific maintenance procedure, depends on the material used for the chamber itself. That's what I know so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Christina. Prof. Khaldun, any comment on the portable hyperbaric
Oh,
devices?
I think Dr. Christina answered it
Okay.
nicely,
Yeah.
so I have nothing to add.
So the next question, what is the meaning of sleeping altitude? Probably Dr. Christina can give
Oh,
to.
okay. Meaning of sleeping altitude means that we have to when we said it's rapid when we said it's stage ascent, means that you you have to rest in that altitude. You have to sleep in that altitude. So means once you ascend like 300 or 500 meters, then you have to stop and then sleep there. Also means stay there overnight, and then the following day you can continue to ascend further. But once the reminder is that once you have reach total increment of altitude of every 1,000 meters, you have to add one rest day. So you have to sleep in that particular height. For example, day one you reach after, and this one applies after 2,500 meters. So after, for example, after day one, let's count the 2,500 as day one, then you stay overnight, then in day two you proceed to 3,000, and then 3,000 meters, then you sleep there, and then day three you climb again until 3,500. In day three you have to stay overnight, but you cannot climb on day four. You have to stay there for another 24 hours. Then that's called the rest day. That's why it's called the sleeping altitude. Sleeping altitude will be recorded. Will always be have to be recorded for expeditions. Especially for the purpose of those who are involved in study to track the occurrence of the uh, symptoms of high altitude illnesses. That's the meaning of sleeping altitude. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Christina. Regarding another question, regarding specific consideration or extra precaution that will be given to the individual with pre-existing condition like mild asthma or well-controlled hypertension in preventing acute mountain sickness.
Okay, for those who's having asthma or any let's start with the pulmonary conditions first, especially so you have to make sure that it's the asthma condition is in well controlled with a not frequent attack, and you have to ensure you had enough you are equipped with your personal medications when you're about to start. That's one thing that want to be reminded, because especially that's why it's put as special considerations, because and when that particular person develops symptoms of like breathlessness, of course we have to there must be someone who had to be able to assess whether this is a condition that is because of the asthma attack, or it's because of the initial symptoms of the earliest sign of the pulmonary edema. That's why it's in certain mountains with or certain expeditions company, they already required checkup tests prior to expeditions to ensure those who are going up to, especially to probably more than those, especially those mountains more than 3,000 meters are already considered requesting the results to ensure that they're in good condition, so it will reduce the probability of incident in the high altitude. That's one thing. The other so for those who are having asthma, it might be beneficial for having they're already slightly chronic those with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease will tend to be but slightly already pulmonary hypertensive. So I think the prophylactic use of phosphodiesterase inhibitor might be could be beneficial for them, but please use it under consultation with the managing doctors, not based on self-consumption. That's what I meant. So you must provide, if you're the expedition doctor, then you must provide careful monitoring in this particular individual. As for those with hypertension, right, doctor, is yeah, be aware of the be aware of the accumulations of oral of the antihypertensive drugs and other medications you use, because as tozolamide, it has diuresis, and then it might cause electrolyte disturbance. As for phosphodiesterase inhibitor, it will also cause hypotension, and that you might want to be very aware, careful, monitor the patient. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Christina. So, next question on the role of mannitol in the management of high altitude cerebral edema. Can we give mannitol instead of dexamethasone if it is the only one available?
Okay, thank you for the questions. Regarding that, actually the mechanism of high altitude cerebral edema is also a vasogenic edema. It's not in the first line mannitol, but it could be used for severe high altitude cerebral edema. It's mentioned that there is one study mentioned that it's recommended for the severe high altitude cerebral edema, but the reason why it's not put as one of the reason it's not put as the first line, because when you're administering mannitol, then you have to be very aware about the other situations of the patients, their renal functions, their cardiac functions, because it's hyperosmotic compared to dexamethasone, which is probably your considerations would be before administering would be less, and it's one medicine that's more practical in carrying compared to mannitol, because dexamethasone could be given orally. That's why it's put as a first line. While mannitol has to be given intravenously, then it will require careful monitoring of the renal function, development of edema, pulmonary edema. That's the reason it could be given in hospital setting with proper monitoring. I think that's my question. But that's my answer. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, Dr. Christina. So a few other question, I think I will open to the floor. Any from Muhammad Abdul Muin Muhammad Akil, any record of C. mindorensis attack on human? I open the floor.
That's the
So what does C
Mindoro.
means? Is it a snail? Is it praying mantis, or is it a crocodile? So I assume coming from Muin is about crocodile lah. It's Crocodilus mindorensis. It's a Philippines crocodile. So they are not as big as the others, big saltwater crocodile. I cannot answer if there are any cases, confirmed cases in the Philippines, but I think with any crocodiles, there's always a risk as well of human contact. But you have to look at what this animal eats. I think so. In terms of human, maybe our livestock might be more affected, like our chickens, our kambing, all those food stuff for us could be also food stuff for them. So that is the encounter normally lah. If you say human habitation, that is a possible attraction for them to come to human contact. I don't know about in Malaysia, but I'm not sure if the Philippines crocodile, the Crocodilus mindoroensis, which refers to the Mindoro Island, where it first discovered. So whether it's just in Mindoro or quite widespread in the area, in that area of Philippines. Okay, so I think whether there is or not, I think there could be, but not reported as well. That's another issue, right? So we don't know whether it's truly underreported or is it never occur. So yeah, but we have to remain vigilant.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Khaldun. I think we will forward the question also to Mr. Marvin later, and he will.
Yeah, he can answer it in Palawan
Yeah.
in December.
So I think the last question from the audience today is how to treat a patient who is stung by a wasp or bee while in the forest, and how long can the patient survive? So I think I open the floor. How long can the patient survive?
Christina, you want to go first?
No, Prof. Khaldun. I'll
Okay.
just allow you to answer the question.
The question is so arbitrary, so it's not specific. So um, when you look at time, people always say how long, right? They ask question like this. That to me, that is not the appropriate answer. That to the appropriate question. Appropriate question will be what you do next after you get stung. So it doesn't matter what's the time. So we always ask people to stay calm. The first aid applies. Get help as soon as possible. If you don't, you're not able to get out of it yourself, then you might get help to come to you. And if you are already known to have allergic reaction, you should not be going into the jungle and forest without, as Dr. Sheikh Farid said, EpiPen. You must have a plan that you might get bitten or stung by the animals that you're allergic to. So EpiPen or adrenaline that you have already pre-prepared to bring with you. And if such sign symptoms occur, then you can do your IM injections while waiting to be retrieved or for you to get out. Okay, so time, I don't want to speculate. So it can be immediate, it can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on if you are allergic or not. How severe is your allergy? As you know, allergic reaction go down to anaphylaxis can be very fast, it can be very quick, right? So I cannot speculate 30 seconds, 1 minute. That's not the answer. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Ahmad Khaldun.
So maybe I just want to ask one question.
Okay.
I had one question just now to Dr. Christina. What do you mean by prophylaxis uh, for high altitude? You mentioned just now.
Oh, yeah.
For example, also people in the South America, Chile, and so on, they chew on coca leaf. Is that kind of part of prophylaxis as well, and how efficient is that? Because you mentioned that drinking certain tea or something like not proven. So how is the coca leaf been used for generations?
Oh, okay. I've just thank you for the questions, Professor Khaldun. I've just heard about this coca leaves for preventions. I'll have a look further into it. But in term, what I meant about prophylactic use of pharmacological agent to prevent high altitude illness is what is more common to use is the acetazolamide that's used half dose, but only for those individuals who's considered at high risk, especially those who already have the most significant that risk factor that is considered consistent among studies reported is history of previous high altitude illnesses. So for those people, 24 hours prior to ascent, they can start consume the astazolamide half dose, then the therapeutic dose. Because it's hope what the effect that is hope is actually the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, so it will increase the uh, renal bicarbonate diuresis, so it will help them to acclimate. Actually, it will kind of like force them to acclimatize faster to the high altitude conditions. And for those who are unable to tolerate acetazolamide, the alternative will be dexamethasone. Only those two drugs that are frequently being used as prophylactic in high risk individuals.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Ahmad Khaldun, Dr. Christina, for the engaging forum session. So, we thank you again on the behalf of the 7 EMSS organizing committee. So now we will move on to our Kahoot session, but stay tuned because after the Kahoot session, we will have a closing remarks for this year's seminar. So we'll start our Kahoot session. And that's wrap up our Kahoot session. So the winners is LD. So to the winners, please remember to contact us via email to claim your prize. The email will be addressed in the chat box below later. So on the behalf of EMS committee for the fourth week, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speakers for today, Professor Dr. Sheikh Farid Abdul Wahab, Dr. Christina Agustini Wiraputri, and Mr. Marvin J. Sarmiento, together with Prof. Khaldun Ismail for joining the forum and for their inspiring and insightful presentation. So now I would like to invite our program director, Dr. Chim Sok Kwan, to deliver her closing remarks.
Okay, dear fellow colleagues, distinguished speakers and friends. So first of all, I would like to thank our program supervisor, Professor Khaldun especially, for giving me the opportunity to deliver the closing remarks. So on behalf of the committee, a huge thank you for our fantastic speakers for all 4 weeks of the series, for giving us a masterclass in handling both the unexpected and the expected events, from wilderness survival, snake bites to jellyfish stings, and the complexity of toxicology. And also a big thank you again to our sponsors, the JA Nabila and Co. Advocates and Solicitors, Wilderness and Austere Medicine Society, the Remote Envenoming Consultancy Services, ASEAN, and the Malaysian Society of Toxicology, MySOT, and Pusat Racun Negara for sponsoring our event. And also a big thank you as well for all the participants for your brilliant engagement and also question. I do hope everybody learned something from our series and carry the lesson from this series with you in your daily practice. So I guess that's a wrap on the 7 emergency medicine series, seminar series for this year. And I hope to see everyone again as a participant, of course, myself, in next year's 8 emergency medicine seminar series. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chim. So now as we move forward to the closing segment of our program, please stay with us for the attendance QR code. On the behalf of the organizing committee, thank you again for joining us today. May the knowledge share continue to inspire collaboration and innovation in emergency medicine. So we hope to see you again in next year EMSS. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Christina.